Welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Omnic Lab. Just kidding. This is Velen's Chosen. That's a bad joke. It's a really bad joke. What's up, folks?
Womp, womp,
Womp, womp, womp. This is you got debated into a Hearthstone podcast. What up now?
Suckers.
Sucko, you got debated. All right, so this is all about the visionaries of Velen's Chosen. Welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It's good to be back here. We are basically a Hearthstone podcast for anybody. Competitive players, arena specialists, deck building visionaries, people that like Hearthstone in standard, people like Hearthstone Tavern Brawls, people like news, and people just like not even talking about Hearthstone because that's what we do here, okay?
Weatherstone. I mean,
Weatherstone. That's what we're known for. We should just legit make a bumper for Weatherstone and then have like... Have the voice line for Alakir and be like, winds obey my command. Like, that's basically it.
Why didn't we think of that sooner? How many years have we been doing this? Jeez.
Well, don't worry, guys. This week we have no holds barred. It's been, you know how there's been, how many episodes can you count that this show has gone where I've said, I think it's going to be a shorter show this week, and we've gone like an hour and a half. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say, guys, it's going to be a long one, so tolerate it. My name's Rob.
Buckle up.
I'm from
Strap
Japan. But yeah. And this is my good friend Grant, or rather, I probably should have OBS up so I can say, this is my friend Grant, because he's on this side. For those of you on the live stream, we actually have a third guest that you're not seeing. And they're right here. Welcome back, Eve. What's up?
Oh my gosh, I have to unmute myself.
And the PogChamp is beginning. Oh.
Hello, everybody. Did you miss me? I'm back.
We did miss you.
Eve, you're going to have to tilt your camera down just a smidge. It looks like your text is eating your teeth again. There we go. We got it. We got it. Okay, cool. Well, welcome back, Eve. How you been? We know. I mean, we know, but they don't. So
I've been lonely without my crew. I have been without internet. People feel with me. Without internet for 4 months.
Man, that's a long time.
We get a Bible thump in the chat, man. Yikes.
It's been enforced withdrawal. Yeah, it wasn't super fun.
What about mobile? You said your mobile data even ran out a couple times, right? You're like, I'm so stranded.
Well, I was living life like I normally do with Wi-Fi in my house. And then I kept getting these notifications from my data provider that was like, you have used up 90% of your data. And it was like a week into the month. I'm like, no.
You don't understand my predicament.
And I swear, I found out that Canada has like the worst data in the world. It's like more expensive than anywhere else in the world. Yeah.
Ooh.
They're like, you can have more data. We'll give you 10 more megabytes for $10.
Great.
Gosh.
That sounds like a steal from the company.
From you.
From the company.
Oh,
man.
But a couple of days ago, I got into a new place.
Ooh.
And first priority was getting internet installed. And now I'm wired and everything's good.
I have to say, Eve, I can totally relate to your circumstance as per moving here and refusing to leave the phone service company until I had internet.
Yep.
So, yeah, I totally know what that's like. Yikes.
Ooh, it's funny how we get attached to our first world conveniences.
It is.
Well, I mean, if I'm going to be honest with you, I did go through a period of like, it was like grief. Where you start out with rage and denial and then bargaining
and then acceptance.
I'm like, maybe it would be healthy for me to go without all of my video games for a while and just really focus on what's important in life and pay attention to my children. And yeah, I went through all of that stuff and now that I'm back with internet, I'm like, I better ease back into this and not just stay up until like 4 o'clock in the morning gaming because I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Games.
That's
I
what
missed
that
you
was me
so
on my
much.
break because I had 2 weeks off of work and I took like paid days off plus like public holidays. And like I was up until like 2 in the morning with Carrie just watching Dungeons and Dragons streams, and we're like, yeah, we should probably go to bed. And then I go to work the following week, and I have to go to bed at like, midnight at the very earliest or latest rather to get to work in the
And
morning.
you can't sleep.
And then I literally couldn't sleep until 4 in the morning, and I was like, I never stay up until 4. It literally is impossible for this body to go function after 2. Like, and I couldn't
That was
sleep.
like my every night. Every night I was never in bed asleep before 2 in the morning. And then it was like
Oof.
9 o'clock. I mean, why not? Because there's nothing to do anyway.
Yeah, you only have a couple more hours just to spend an all-nighter. You might as well. So, Grant, did you have any questions that you've been getting from the community or anything that we can just like pull Eve on?
think- Yeah, we're gonna just sort of ask leading questions. Just so
Hopefully,
Eve-
Interview
hopefully,
here.
what
Pretend
happens is
I'm
we
a
keep
guest that
asking
you're
you.
interviewing.
well, you know how it goes. Like when you have a show and you have 3 hosts and one host just mysteriously vanishes, so to speak. And we kind of knew
We can't tell
we knew
everyone
you
that she's
weren't
a
really going
mafia
anywhere.
boss. So
We can't tell you that you like went into like hiding or something like that. But
Witness
like
protection
I
program.
think like
Yeah.
as best as you can, as much as you want to tell us, like
she's wanted
why
in
did
at
you-
least 7 different countries.
she works for the Canadian Secret Service.
She just really likes Canada and wants to stay
That is
there.
cute.
espionage. I mean, but like as
Sleeper
much as
agent.
you want to tell us, like where did you go for the last 4 months? What's life been like that's kind of forced you into the hiatus you had to take?
Well, while I was in the middle of it and kind of dealing with it, I didn't really want to share because I didn't know what was going to happen. I was just kind of in the
Mm.
moment and trying to focus on making the best choices that I could and things like
Mm.
that. So, and I'm a very personal person. Like I keep most of the details about myself to myself, unless I think there's a point and there's a reason for sharing. But yeah.
Mhm.
So I moved in with my parents. Was living in their guest bedroom with my 3 children for the last 4 months.
Mm.
And my parents are really old school and they don't like video games. They don't like electronics
Humans,
and they don't have great
dragons.
like they check their email and that's it.
Mm.
My dad actually had a certain amount of data. And then when I and my kids moved into the guest bedroom and they had their iPads and their 3DSs going like full stream, I ran through his data in 1 day.
Yeah.
I
And
bet
he was
that was an
like,
interesting conversation.
we need to talk.
Yeah.
This has never happened before. What is
Mhm.
going on? Yeah. So that
Mm.
was kind of an awakening. So yeah, I separated from my husband and now I have my own place, my own house, and the kids have their own rooms and it's nice. It's kind of like, as you can sort of see, it's a bit bare. Like we're sort of building a home one piece at a time. So I'm
Mm.
figuring that out. Yeah, there were extenuating circumstances surrounding the split, and so it's going to be pretty permanent for a pretty long time. There may be jail time involved. Let's
Oh,
just
boy.
put it that way. Let's not go any
Okay.
deeper than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a new life. It's a new way of like figuring out how to live. So I had to put like extra stuff like the podcast on hold for a while,
Mm.
which is really important to me. The community and the podcast and all of the time and effort we've put into it and our relationship was really important to me. So it was a really big step to say, I can't do this for a while.
It's also really hard
Right.
when the one thing that's like a time commitment or something that like you have promised, like this is what I'm going to do, turns into something that's like, not only is this something I feel obligated to do, this is something that I want to do. And then it turns into an oasis. It's like, okay, this is, I can finally set aside everything, push these mounds of paperwork and mounds of just like, family life and say, okay, this is just something different. Let's just do that and just take a break. Like for us to produce Velens is very different for me in particular. And I think Grant could probably agree with this because I do 2 different productions And it's not just like the tone and the feel and the idea and the motives behind it, because I feel like we still have some of those similar things that Omniclab has, you know. But like coming here for Velen's is a completely different approach. It's just like, this is more home base. This is more, let's hang out. This is more, let's talk, let's teach, let's chill, and hang out with my friends. And if you happen to tune in to Velen's Chosen and you're doing whatever else it is you're doing while you're also listening, and you miss a few things, you generally don't feel the need to like, I don't need to go back and like figure out what I missed.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything.
Whereas you go to like Omniclab and we're talking about like, this is the animation cancel for Genji, so you can dash and then do this and then do that, and you're like, okay, hang on, I need like a migraine pill, and I need to sit down and like sit in the practice range and try to practice what they're doing. So it's it's totally a different approach, right? But
For me, it felt like I was losing everything. Like everything that I knew and that was secure and supportive, and my life was being stripped away. I was just being forced to lose everything that I was used to and that I was counting on and was stable in my life.
Mm.
And then when all that was gone, it was kind of like you're forced to realize what's important. What's the most important thing to you and what you need to focus on when you have nothing. So that's been an experience, obviously,
yeah,
but it's almost like rebuilding your life from scratch. Sometimes that can be freeing because you kind of choose what's the most important thing to you and you let go of everything else. So all that I have in my life right now are the things that I consider important, and I've let go of everything else.
Just like a way of forcing clutter, if you will.
Yeah.
Clutter, in quotation marks. Interesting.
Yeah, it's like you
life has a
strip
funny
down
way
the
of doing
bare
it for you.
necessities. Yeah. Because honestly, I was in a place where I wouldn't have done it myself. I was so used to it, and you know how you get into a rut and you just kind of start to accept things that probably you shouldn't accept because the alternative is really scary.
Mm-hmm.
Being on your own, being alone, figuring out what you're going to do and taking care of everything as a single parent is, I don't think anybody would willingly choose that if they had other options.
Probably not.
But it happened, and there was no if, and, or but about it. So I was kind of
Now, you can feel
forced
free to
into it.
deny this question, but I'm going to ask, because I'm curious as a non-parent. How was? I'm trying to think of how to frame this in like an easy to understand way for just like people
I'm
listening
smart.
in.
You can make it
No,
difficult.
for people listening, because our listeners are like, I'm just kidding.
What are you trying to say?
I mean, they're listening to me ramble for this long. All right, like, so.
Oh, goodness.
Anyways, so sorry, that was the weirdest tangent I've done in a month. So Eve, what was it like for your kids to go through this, as much as you could maybe like understand from them, like from your point of view, and then how was it for you having to like, this is what normal is going to be like to them, you like, you know, explaining it to them? Because I know that when I was a kid, I vividly remember when my uncle passed away, because he was a big figure to me. He was a really cool guy, but as I grew older, I found out that he was making really bad decisions, and then all at once, he passed away, and it wasn't even the crazy thing was it wasn't related to any of his bad decisions that he was making, because it was a freak accident. Lightning struck a tree and killed my uncle, and it like jumped to him, and it's like that's something that like doesn't happen. People don't get struck by lightning very often. Like there's a higher
There's a whole
likelihood
saying
that
about,
you'll be
like
attacked by a
struck
shark,
lightning.
which is one of the lowest like injury things in the world, of being attacked by a shark. And it's
Yeah.
sensationalized in television because it's so crazy when it does happen. But I remember going through when my parents were trying to explain what was going on, and I was like, I was in
Yeah.
3rd grade. I was like, I can't unprocess that.
For me, obviously to begin with, I just tried to shelter them from everything because I didn't know how it was going to turn out. And
Sure.
if it could get resolved, then I was like, we'll just kind of gloss over this and continue on with our lives. Because my oldest son he just turned 13. So
Is that junior high
I tried
age?
to kind of yeah.
Okay.
We don't have as many junior highs in Canada. We have what's called middle school.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So that
They call it that here too in Japan, but for whatever reason,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I just kind of dealt with everything, and in that way I was actually really grateful for video games because they were able to just kind of tune out, when things were happening that they didn't want to interact with and they didn't want to deal with. I was
Mm.
like, you just,
Mm-hmm.
sit in your room and play your games, and that's fine because as a kid, you shouldn't have to deal with this. You shouldn't have to experience this at all. This is adult problems that it's not your fault and it has nothing to do with you. So just play and just escape. So I
Yeah,
was
I
really
do. I
happy
do
that they
like
could
that
have
you
that.
you said that because I think for me, when I was in that young mind, it was really important to understand if something was because of me
Yeah.
or unrelated to me. I think those are like the two most important things when I was going through that. And
Mm.
I'm not saying that my parents did an excellent job of it, but I don't think anybody could. Like, you just don't know what to do in those kind of circumstances. Like, what do I say? It's just like, this is what it was. That's no longer going to be like this anymore. And it's going to be this now.
And the two youngest are kind of at that stage right now where they just trust me. And so if I say this is how things are going to be, then they
Mm-hmm.
just believe it and they accept it. It's
Mm.
probably not going to last forever. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
grow up and start asking questions and having opinions and wanting to be more involved in things. But for right now, they're just, I take care of them. I take care of everything and they just trust me. And that's
Gotcha.
enough for them. The oldest has a lot of questions about
Yeah.
why these things are happening. And those are hard questions.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You can't make decisions for other people. And the other half of our relationship made a lot of decisions that there aren't really good answers for. Like, there's
Mhm.
no good reason. So you can't say this is the reason.
Right.
And I don't want to, like, I'm not ever going to get into the habit of tearing down their dad because that's not what I'm into. Like, they
Mm.
need their father, they need a strong male figure in their life. And so I'm not just going to dump everything on him and say, this is all his fault. He did this to us, you know? So
Mm.
It's not an us
it's
versus
just
them
kind of like,
mentality as being helpful.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't help. It
It
doesn't help
seems
them at all.
it seems like that, as a parent, like my kids are starting to get old enough, and my wife and I have been talking about like when is a good time to start bridging them into the adult world,
Yeah.
and like when's the right time to do that? Like when do we start like being okay with talking about certain quote unquote adult things, whatever that may be? And they're like, ooh, we're all kind of squeamish about it, and I I can't imagine like nope. Here you are. You're right. You have to be in the adult world now. This is adult stuff, and this is stuff that you just kind of have to figure out and explain, and they have to just kind of understand as best as they can wrap their minds around. It's just like,
I've only answered questions when they've asked,
mm,
basically.
Okay.
If they want
mhm,
to know, then I'll sit down and try and keep it simple, not get too deep and complex, and just answer the questions that they have. Because sometimes we can get carried away to kind of go, and this other thing, and this other thing. And all they asked was one question,
right,
and
right,
that's all they really want an answer for.
right.
So, but every child is different. Like, how mature your children are and how much they'd
Hmm.
be able to handle and their maturity level. So for me, it was just, I didn't want them to have to deal with that. I didn't want them to have to
I think it's good
take
to
it
answer
on.
their questions too. Just like instead of like brushing it off, I feel like that's even an
Yeah.
option given to parents today is they just don't answer. But the kids feel like they've been listened to, like
Yeah.
your kids are like, mom cares enough to like sit down with me and answer my question. And like, that's great. I know that
Yeah.
sometimes when I was in high stress situations with even just friends or my parents when I was growing up, when I come into a situation where I have to be asked a question that's really difficult and I'm in like a time crunch, a high stress situation, a low mental health situation on my personal side, and I have to answer it, I'm just like, I respond really poorly. I was like, I don't want to answer. I don't get the answer because somebody else isn't going through that. And it's like, I feel
Mm.
like we just don't give people, as adults, we don't give other adults the free reign of saying that, you know, it's not good enough for me to answer that question for you right now. And I feel like that's kind of like what we also had to go through as a cast this couple weeks. Because like
I mean,
I
there
would
were
ask
times
you
when I didn't
questions and
wanna
I was
talk
just
about
like,
it.
are you going to be here? And you're like, I don't even want to answer that. You're like, I'm like, I totally understand, but it doesn't help me right now and I have to make a show in like
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just,
I
it's just
was
fun to
dealing with
learn.
a lot of things, and that's exactly what it was. I didn't know how to explain it to people. I didn't know how to explain it to myself. I didn't know where it was going, so I just didn't want to talk about it at all. I just wanted to kind of internalize it and figure it out myself. I had a lot of help. My family kind of rallied around me. I have 6 sisters who live relatively close by, and 2 brothers, and my father and my mother who took me into their home.
Yeah.
Said you can live with us, you know, as long as you need to until things stabilize. Um, and yeah, I'm still figuring things out. I have a lot of really good friends that either have experience specifically with what I'm going through or are just really intelligent people and are really smart and can give me advice when I'm like, I'm dealing with this right now. I'm freaking out. Like,
Mm.
Friends
help
like
me.
that are the best.
And they're kind of a little bit removed from the situation so they can look at it in a more analytical way and be, okay, this is what I think. So, you know, you can take it or leave it, but this is how I'm reading your situation. And that helps to kind
Sure.
of get an outside look at it. So,
Sounding boards.
yeah.
Sounding board people are the best.
Well,
So
folks,
that's been, you know who you are, my secret friends.
You have secret friends that listen to the show? Sweet.
Yeah.
I want secret friends that listen to the show.
Well, here's the
I
thing.
love
don't wanna
secret
brag-
friends.
I don't want to brag about my super popular people who are my friends and be like name dropping. So I just say my
Name
secret
drop.
friends.
Name drop.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna ridiculous hat. You have been an amazing friend throughout this entire experience, and I really appreciate all the times you have counseled me when I've been freaking out. So there you go. I just called out one of my friends.
Cat's good dude.
Hat is good, dude.
So I think it's time to get out of our long to be Weatherstone. I guess is that the this was basically what Weatherstone was
The
taking
Weather
over.
of our lives.
Life Weatherstone. Okay.
Lifestone.
As the Hearthstone.
I'm gonna
turns.
go. All right. So
I
we
think
got.
we're gonna change the focus of the show now.
Yeah, we're not talking about Hearthstone this week. No, I'm just kidding. We're
We
talking
just
about
don't-
Hearthstone
all
this
right.
week. So, first thing up on the list is the Hearthstone blog was updated on January 9th. And it was with, for me, and probably a good chunk of the community. I wouldn't say the entire community, as per some things that Eve was telling us in the pre-show, about the arena changes and the Rumble Run changes. So, first and foremost, the easiest thing to break down here is that as of the December 2018 update for nerfing cards, that now you will no longer get any dust bonuses for dusting them or crafting them. Or sorry, dusting them for full price, right? Or for full crafting cost. In addition, Arena had an update last December where they were going to decide to adjust the appearance rate for individual cards available in Arena to ensure the overall win rate of each class remains as close to the ideal 50%, aka a plus or minus of 5% within that window. So Hunter, Rogue, and Warrior have an average quality of their Arena picks were lowered. Druid, Mage, Paladin, Priest, Shaman, Warlock have had theirs raised. That is about as non-specific of a change that we've gotten in a while. So let's just roll with the punches on that one. The Rumble Run changes was really intriguing to me because A, I wasn't playing the Rumble Run for a long time. B, I'd gotten to the final boss a couple times and just was like, I don't have to do this. So
Yeah.
I didn't. But basically, he said, here's the post, is basically champions, rumblers, trolls of all sizes. We watch you for a month of punching faces in the Rumble Run and think there's more rooms for changes based on how things have gone. So here's what's new. Weighted card rewards. They've increased the possibility for synergy cards and for your shrine. Okay. They have adjusted the boss decks to not have such huge overpowered combat, and balancing the combat levels has been pretty difficult for them. So basically they want to make sure that you're still getting epic monumental combat challenges with overwhelming odds, but when it doesn't work, it doesn't feel like it was the randomness or this huge swing that happens from the AI. pulling an overwhelming combo. And since no one likes being repeatedly hit in the face with the club, we've pruned some of the power of the boss decks. So your runs will play more moderately. So that was a good sentence to include there. And then
flavor.
Shrine selection changes. We've early builds in the Rumble Run allowed players to pick a class and a shrine before playing. But we found that most playtesters immediately picked their favorite class, gravitated to a certain shrine, and played that one over and over and over and over again. We wanted to encourage players to try different ones, especially experiment with stuff they normally wouldn't. So we put the current random shrine drafting in place. That would help achieve your initial goal, but it removed the feeling of mastery. So the ability to choose the shrine and play it with it until you've finally found that you've mastered it or exhausted its possibilities. So we wanted to bring that back, and with this update, whenever you lose, you can expect to always be offered the shrine you just lost with. So the shrine that boss used to beat you in your turn, last run, will also be offered per the status quo. And then if you look in the comments, to go along with this, not only will, when you lose, you'll always be offered a shrine that you lost with, but if I look down here in the comments, there were some blue posts that they were asking, hey, can we have Ricard as an unlockable hero, or the guy that you play as during the Rumble runs?
Yeah.
And they were like, Ricard's awesome. We might be talking about how to incorporate him in a Hearthstone in the future. So maybe. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah, if you keep reading, get the
Maybe a card.
Yep. Also, Stratos asked the inability to properly choose between them and which ones you've used before regarding the shrines also makes replayability harder, at least that you could try to make winning all of the challenge, but it stands there's too much work in resetting to play with them all. So the game designer said one additional change that is undocumented, since the impact's only the most hardcore, is that of the shrines that you are offered, a shrine that you haven't completed the mode with will always be included. So if you are a veteran Rumble Run guy or girl out there that wants to play this, and you happen to say, okay, I beat it with Ricard on this shrine and this shrine and this shrine. So not only will those three, especially if you just lost with them, appear again, but one that you haven't won with will always be offered. And win with is qualified by saying you haven't completed all of the bosses with it.
How many shrines per class are there? 2 or 3?
I think it's 2.
It seems like 2 is the right answer, but I can't remember. But I beat it early, so I just like, oh, okay, punch, done. Got my card back.
Gotcha.
And kind of just forgot about it.
I tried a bunch of them. I even tried it at BlizzCon, but it was more of like a boss level 3 kind of level, so it was pretty easy.
Yeah, when we were talking about this, especially in the pre-show, it kind of made me think of leading right into the next thing, which was the PR responses from Jesse Hill. That it's a mistake to kind of think that our experience is the experience, and then just kind of to react to our own experience and to make judgments based on our experience. So people saying, "Oh, really? Was that a big deal?" I mean, obviously it was to a lot of people in order to get this kind of response from them, and I'm glad they made the changes that they did and spoke to the people who were complaining about it. But that was also what happened on the forums that Jesse was responding to, is people saying, this is it. This is the way that it is. And him saying, well, no, that's your personal experience. Don't speak for all Hearthstone players. Don't think that your point of view is the only point of view. And I think as podcasters, we can fall into that trap too. Depending on what our state of play is, how often we're interacting with the game and things like that, we can start to feel like we've got our finger on the pulse of the Hearthstone community, and this is how they feel, and this is how we all feel. And so it's kind of, we got to be careful to say, this is my point of view, and I'm sure there are many, many other people who feel differently, depending on how they play.
Yeah, you gotta don't fall into the trap of being the mouthpiece of the community at large.
Yeah.
Additionally, I love this post by Jesse Hill because it was basically in a time where people are pretty accusatory towards Blizzard, Activision Blizzard, and like really negative over the course of the last couple months in all of their games, not just Hearthstone, but Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft to a certain extent, and Overwatch. I felt like the CM comments or the community manager comments that Jesse Hill had here was just like brilliant CM work, a no tolerant BS type of approach, as well as making sure that it's kind and respectful to the people that are saying there. So, for example, someone says, I see an easy solution to this dilemma. Give the players what they want. And Jesse says, not all players want the same thing. That was basically him telling him to shut up, be like, you're an idiot. But doing it in such a nice way.
Do you not realize that a lot of players have completely conflicting desires and you can't give them both what they want because they want the opposite from the other person?
Allow me to speak for all 349 million Americans. They all want the same thing.
Or 40 million multilingual, multicultural community that is Hearthstone, which is bigger than the United States. Thank you very much.
Right.
Or not bigger than the United States, but bigger than most countries.
Yeah, I mean, Hearthstone's so multinational. How can you possibly, like, even think you're voicing even a sliver of the pie? You know, I don't know.
It's also really interesting to me when people say certain things about like how bad something is or like how broken something is and like voicing their upset comments about Hearthstone or Overwatch in particular. And I read these comments and then like in a week or in a couple weeks a time or surrounding this post, I read something about the dynamics of representation in global communities. And seeing that the people posting in like an EU forum or an NA forum, and even if you combined EU and NA, it doesn't even equivocate to 50% of the totality of the community. And I'm just like, you don't understand that every post that is in English on this forum only represents maximum half of the total player base.
If that.
Like even if we just give the BOTD benefit of the doubt and say EU, NA, English speaking communities in other countries like Singapore or Hong Kong and Australia and New Zealand and other places of the like. You combine all of that and say that's X, that's 50% of the community. You still have 50% of the community of people that are literally not saying anything that's in the same park, or rather it's just as diverse, right?
This makes me think of a conversation I was having with Hat before the show where we were reminiscing about all of the broken decks, like from way back when, and everything that he named, I was like, oh, I love that deck. I played the hell out of that deck.
Right,
It's like,
right.
remember back when, Recruit Paladin was like broken with Corridor Creeper, and I was like, oh, I played the hell out of that. That was so fun. And remember Shaman. Wow. I just dropped upstairs. Which Shaman was it, Rob, that you and I loved the hell out of?
Oh, Whirling Zapomatic Aggro.
Yeah.
With
and he's like
that's going back
double single mana rock biters on a 2-drop that had 3/2 Wind Fury.
I'm talking Tuskar Totemic when it wasn't nerfed to the ground.
Turn two, like, what was it? 6. It was like 3/2 plus a 3/4. So it was a 6/6 across 2 bodies, turn 2. No
and
overload.
And then that one that got buffed every time you used an overload card, and just like the ramp, it was amazing. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, that horrible deck. And I'm like, oh, that was my favorite. I played
that
the
deck
heck out of
degenerate.
And
let's be honest. It was powerful because it was degenerate. If you
Rogue.
say Oil Rogue, I legit, like, I want to die because I miss that deck so much.
I miss that deck a lot. I wish they would bring it back.
It was the first deck I brought to a tournament.
Did you win that tournament?
No, but I got like top what was it? Not top 8. What's the one before that? Top 16?
Top 16.
It was my first tournament, so I wasn't going to do well.
It's still pretty good.
But when you're in it and that's like your favorite deck and you're enjoying it, if anyone says, oh, it's broken, it's out of control, you're like, no, it isn't. It's fine.
They printed the cards. It might be broken, but it's still here. I'm going to play it now. Thanks. Okay, thanks, bye.
Don't touch my baby. You'll defend it to the ends of the earth.
Is it possible that there are people who play games,
and
whether maybe it's like a weird, like, subconscious multi-layers, inception kind of thing, where they play the game not because they really like playing the game, but because they just like something to complain about, and this is easy to latch on, and they maybe know enough about the game to where, like, I can speak just authoritatively enough to where I can complain about this and sound like I know what it is, and that gives me reason for living and breathing, man. I have nothing better to do than hop on Reddit or hop on
Eve
the
brought
forums
this
and
up
start...
when we were talking about Q Block when it first came out, and I was playing the crap out of it. Like, you remember this? I was playing so much Q Block, and she's like, how do you like playing the control version more than the better, like, initiative version? I was like, I just like to see the world burn.
Baby.
Well, this is something I've honestly wondered about in Hearthstone for a long time. If you can look at the kind of decks that a person chooses to play in something that's their favorite and kind of extrapolate from that what their personality is.
Mm-hmm.
If
Oh,
that is
yeah.
possible at all.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who like all different kinds of decks and like to play like all of them, which is fine. But like the people who are like, I'm only a control player. Does that link
Mhm.
up to a certain personality type? And I'm only an aggro player. That's something that's fascinating to me. I kind of
I,
wonder.
I think there's some truth in that. I really do. I think also if you're like a person who wants to play all varieties all the time, like you're constantly switching, I think that's also related to like personality type
Who
too.
could that be?
I-
It's not me.
Grant has
Not
slowly
me.
tried everything.
I
Like-
I was thinking about that the other day. I was looking at like my I've been biting the bullet this month and playing warrior because it's my only non-golden class.
Okay.
But all my other classes are right around the same, within a couple hundred wins of each other. Like I don't have one that's just far and away more than any of the rest of them, because it's
You're a
like,
teacher.
yeah, I want to be I want to be good
just
at
play
all of
what's
them because I
good.
want to understand it. I play what's good, but I
Yeah.
also kind of have to like the decks because, like for example, like I know Hunter's good and I like Hunter. I don't have any problem with it, but kind of bored of it. So I wanted to play something different. So I played some of the Clone Priest, and I've been playing odd Quest Warrior lately, and I finally figured out how to play it. So I've been doing well with it. But like
Which
I was
my
like, all right,
immediate question would be, okay, what is the fun factor of this deck? What is the moment where you are doing what you want to do, and what is that?
for me, it's for that particular deck is one. I'm a spike. I love winning. I'm having fun if I'm winning. But the other thing is I realized that I let's say the first 10 games I played, I think I maybe went 500 with it, and maybe a little less. Was probably 4 out of 10 or something like that. And I kept going, geez, well, what's wrong with it? So problem solving for me is important, to where it's
That
like,
makes
okay,
sense.
I lost this game. I could have won that game. What did I do? Oh, if I had played this one turn different, or if I had planned around this card, or if I'd planned around this game plan, I could have won. Or, well, no, there was nothing I was going to do because they had the nuts and I was dead, after they drew their first hand. I mean, it's that for me is very interesting. Like solving problems and figuring things out is very attractive to me, I guess you could say.
That makes sense.
So that's why I like picking different decks all the time. And so when a new deck comes out that I've never seen before, it's like, ooh, I am playing that because I want to figure it out. So
Is there a part of this particular deck, though, that is like the thing you want to do? Like maybe it's one turn that you set up just perfectly, or a moment that you know you're going to win the game if you do this thing?
now this deck is kind of boring like that. It doesn't like, at least there's no like, oh boy, here it comes. It's really like, okay, all right,
It's not a
this is the way
Malygos
the game
moment.
It's not a Malygos moment, but I do like the moment of where like, you cannot win. I have too much armor and I have too much taunt, and you're an aggro deck.
So
You don't get to win today.
let me
Oh,
let me
no,
ta-
it's
can I
that
talk to
kind
that?
of deck.
Can I talk to
Oh,
that?
no.
Because
Yeah.
this is my style deck for sure. This is how I like to
Oh,
win.
no.
So
I'm gonna hate this episode.
That's how I like to win. I like
Probably
put it on
more
a
than
spike like
anything.
that. I want it in the bag. Like when I'm playing, I want to play in such a way.
You want it to be
where
like
I'm
an
in control.
irreversible moment in time that happens,
Mhm.
and they don't even necessarily need to know that it's there. But if you know that it's
Mhm.
there, you're just like, it's like that moment when you're playing a tabletop creative card game. You have your hand, and you kind of just lean back in the chair,
Yeah, you just lean back and just
and
smile.
and it's your turn in Magic, and you
That's
just like
your hand
untap
coming.
all of your land nice and slow, and then you don't even like put the cards down nicely. You just kind of like throw it,
Oh, this sounds like such a jerk thing
and then
to do.
and then you just, you don't even say it's your turn. You just go like, here you go, and you just like gesture. It's your turn, man.
This is like the well-played version. In Hearthstone, it would be just like pressing the well-played button.
Oh, I don't
before
even
you do
plus. I don't.
anything.
No. This is
Like-
what it is. Is I've evolved. I don't say well played anymore until the game's over. Okay. I say, because I squelch everyone. So like
Baby steps.
I just unsquelch them at the end of the game.
Baby steps.
That's what you do. Is you unsquelch them at the end of the game.
I'm proud
And
of
you're
you.
like, okay, I feel good about
Oh,
myself now.
oh,
I
see.
come on, go ahead.
No matter what you say, I can handle it.
I can take it. I can take it.
I will
Alright.
play everybody. I don't even care. I will play
What?
everybody.
Who is is Grant?
At
well,
the
I
end
don't,
of the
but I
game?
only do it after I know I've won. At the end of the game,
the
like
end of
I'm
the game,
done.
yeah.
Well played. As their face is exploding, I well play them.
Yeah.
But
Okay, see,
I've been
for
doing that
me,
lately,
it's a
too.
weird thing, but the well played timing is very critical.
I never well
When
played
you
early.
press that button is really critical. It's a weird thing, but it's almost like everybody understands it. The time when
Yeah.
you press it is either infuriating and really rude or like a good game after a game.
So Eve, what
Yeah.
if you say well played in, let's say, OTK Paladin, where you're doing a sequence of events
Mhm.
and you get to the last piece that you need to do to finish it, but you well played before you did the last piece. Is that okay?
For me, if you have something in your hand and you're going to play it, so what is on the board is not like already obvious to your opponent, you're going to do something next. That's a BM to me.
Really? Okay, because I
Yeah.
would say
If the
that
board
that's
state
okay
is
for
obvious
me.
and they can see I'm going to die and there's no way that I can prevent this and they can see it in front of them, then that's okay for a well played. But if it's I'm about to do something to ruin your day, BM and then play.
Really? Okay, because I always thought that was
Um,
okay, especially when I was playing like really aggro decks that ran like Leroy Coldblood, and I had like double
Mhm.
Coldblood in hand, and I'm like, and I had Leroy, or I was like waiting for another Coldblood or waiting for another source of damage, like a deadly poison or something, and then they end their turn, and I've been calculating lethal for that whole like 2 turns, like I've been setting this up, and then I draw the piece that I need that I was looking for, and I just say well played, and then I go boom, 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 kill them.
I will tell you this. It's not as bad as well playing at the end of your turn when they have an entire turn to go before it gets back to you.
I don't think I've ever done that.
That's like
Yeah.
the worst one. It's like I have stuff in my hand and no matter what you do on your turn, you're screwed.
An ice block turn.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Don't even
Or rather, an OTK Paladin that has basically 2 cards left in their deck that they're ready to go, and they've got double timeout, and they well play you 3 turns early.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
the
I
worst.
like grants where like their portrait is exploding and you're fast enough to click well
Get the
played
well
after
played.
the game's over. That's good. That's good time.
Okay. I only will well play somebody like early is if they've been spamming, because sometimes I like to challenge my mental stability and let
I want to challenge my ability to not be a jerk early.
I want to
Well,
see how close I can get to the edge.
well they like, so every night, you know how it goes. Every
How
now
close
and
can
again
my
you'll get some
hubris get?
pretentious person who gets a
Right.
great draw and they're already well playing you on turn 2. And you're like, "What?" And it's like, "All right. The
Yeah,
thing
the guy
I
that
will
has Tunnel
enjoy
Trog on
most in
turn 1.
life, the thing I am going to enjoy most is destroying you. Now, you might still beat me, but if I beat you, it'll be like eating a delicious meal that I didn't have to pay for. You know, it's
It's
gonna
like
be
it's like the guy
delicious
playing
and
aggro
savory
and you're playing like mid range and they're top
Mhm.
decking and you can kill them and you have like, I don't know, 12, 15 health, but there's no way they can come up with like 10 damage out of nowhere. And you're like, I know all the cards you play. I know everything in your deck. I know where this game is going. You're dead the next turn. And I just draw it out for like 3 or 4 turns. And I'm like, are you going to concede, buddy? Because you've been emoting for like the last 10 minutes.
Rob, you are a horrible human
That
being.
I do not do that. And here's why. Because
I don't bring it up because I
I-
do it.
Okay, let
I'm
me-
just saying bringing it up because it does happen on ladder, okay?
Okay.
it does happen on ladder, and I hate those people.
It happened to me. It happened to me.
Yeah,
Well,
no, that's not cool.
In
I
a
mean,
friendly
that's
match.
the douchey thing to do, right? If you've
Yes.
got
Don't be
the
that
game
guy.
on lock and you're gonna draw it out and make you wait, it's like, look, man, just either just play it so I know I've lost, or
Yeah.
or what I really hate is like they're top decking 0 and you have like 30 life. They have top decking of 30 life. It's like, why haven't you conceded yet? You're out of
Okay, number
cards and
one.
options. Why
Number
don't you
one,
concede?
depending on where they are, if you haven't leveled up all of your characters yet, the more cards you play, the more damage you do, the more
Yeah.
More
experience you get at the
actions
end
you
of the game.
perform in a game.
Right, exactly. So some people are trying to complete quests.
Mhm.
They need to play X number of cards, do X number of damage, whatever. So that falls into that
That's
purview. I
true.
give them that
Do a
break and
certain
say
amount of
you could be doing
turns.
something. This might not be BM. That's fine. But I only well play if somebody else well plays me first. Like if I'm winning and they well play me, I'm like, you're a great sport. Well played back.
Yeah, I do that.
It's the only time I'll ever
I
do
think
it.
that's fair.
I mean, that's class. If somebody has lost and said, you just legitimately had a good game and I'm going to well play you, then that's like,
Now,
yeah.
what
game.
if you're the type of player like me where I go into a game and I start the game and they say, well met, and I well met them back, greetings, and then I squelch
Right.
them.
I do that too. Like I wait for a couple seconds.
Because I don't know if that well played is going to come, but I don't want to deal with anything in between.
I immediately squelch them.
Or rather, you don't even get to the greeting. You're just like, I'm out. I'm going to play this game for like 2 hours. I ain't got time for this shit.
It depends on the character. Like if it's a hunter and I know I'm already going to be like close to insanity by the end of the game, I might squelch right away before they have a chance
If it's
to
a
say
hunter,
anything.
they get the squelch.
Is that prejudice?
Yes.
Classist.
Extreme.
You're a classist.
You're a classist. Classicism, but not in the traditional way.
I don't know. You kind of, it's a way to preserve my own sanity. Like I'm fine with it. If I know that I get enraged with BMs, that it does bother me and it does get to me, that's what I do. I greet if they greet, and then I squelch immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I've also seen people who are like, I think I remember hearing something where Firebat was playing, and he was doing a mirror match as a rogue, and he plays Valera, and the other person was playing as Maiev. He's like, all right, folks, here's Firebat lesson 101 in mental health. If they're playing rogue, great. If they're playing Maiev, you squelch them because Valera is clearly the better one.
I would want to know, honestly, what he knows about Valera. If
Probably
it's from
nothing.
World of Warcraft?
I don't think he's played any
Or if it's
WoW.
just-
He's like,
Yeah,
people
that was-
people playing the game do the classic card back, they get the golden heroes, and they use the golden heroes they earned. They don't cheat the system, and they don't buy them so they can get the cool
Okay.
animations. It was more of
I
him
see
just
that.
like memeing. He wasn't like serious or anything.
Yeah, no, it is something that goes through a lot of people's minds though, right? Like you have this like glowing thing, but you didn't earn it. It's not a 500 win because I can see the rest of your profile is not also lit up. So yeah, it's something people think about.
Yeah, when I play mage, I only play Medivh. Cuz it's like I have the whole promotion for Khadgar. I've got my Jaina. It's just
Dad
like
wizard.
I gotta play my boy Medivh, dude. He's got a
They
hero
call
power
him
that shoots
Dadgar in
freaking
World of Warcraft.
purple
Dad
energy,
wizard?
man. Purple energy.
Dadgar
I
or
want
Dad
that
wizard.
to be a change.
Dadgar.
I want the fireball. I want the fireball from the hero power if you have Medivh to be purple and not orange.
That would be.
Purple.
That would be
I just
very
like the
doable.
threaten.
Or green
Nothing will
magic.
stop me. Nothing.
Yeah.
Do you threaten people, Rob?
I only
do
threaten
that when
people
the
that are
person on
rude.
the other end. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If they're rude, then I
Serious?
use it. It feels really good.
Learning a
I don't
lot.
get that same feeling when I'm playing friggin' Murloc Shaman. It's like, "Ah!"
You know,
Like,
I
that
Okay,
doesn't
I have
sound
another
threatening.
question. How do you kill people? Do you kill people with exact lethal damage? Do you play every card in your hand?
as much
or do you
overkill as
just use-
possible.
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
heard. Well, tell me if you guys have heard this. I heard this from Magic players and Magic players out there. You can tell me if this is correct or not. Somebody told me once that in Magic it was sort of a respectful, classy thing that if you played and you lost or you won, I don't remember what the order was, but like you did show your opponent your hand. You played everything out so that people saw what you had. Like
Something that I thought was I could show them you didn't have a chance. You don't need to feel bad about it. It's not like you could have made a different decision. You could have played a different card. You made a mistake and you might have won. It's like, this is what I had in my hand. You had no hope. So
Yeah.
you can walk away saying that wouldn't have made a difference if I'd have done that instead of that or that.
it's like playing Uno with a handful of wilds.
I know that there's something in Yu-Gi-Oh where they had like magic cards, trap cards, and monster cards where you could have them in your hand or on the field, and the win condition was just get them.
Oh wow.
So like if you had the whole thing is Exodia Mage in Hearthstone.
Mhm,
It
mhm,
comes
mhm.
from Yu-Gi-Oh. It's
Yeah,
called the
yeah,
5
yeah.
pieces of Exodia. You have 2 hands,
Yeah.
2 feet, and the head. And the whole
Mhm.
deck was oriented towards crazy amounts of cycle, just like Exodia Mage. But
Mhm.
the whole thing with the deck was in Yu-Gi-Oh, when you're doing cycle, you have to balance your deck for having cycle as well as removal. So the whole thing in the deck was reactive removal, proactive removal, and defensive cards and defensive tools, so that when something dies, you draw something. So similar to what basically think about Loot Hoarder as if it had Taunt. That's kind of what the deck had, which is filled with. Or if this minion dies, destroy an enemy minion. There's so many cards that were basically just like Sylvanas and taunted versions of Loot Hoarder that you would just have, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's how the deck would play, and they had to nerf it so that you could basically, they would nerf decks by having cards where you'd have 2 or 3 of that copy on your deck, and you would have to only have 1. And it got so powerful that they had basically over half the deck went to just singles, where they basically made the deck legendaries, and you just had to fill it with legendaries to even have a chance at getting the combo, because the cycle is just ridiculous. And then when you drew all 5 pieces, the game was over.
Just because you had them in hand, you didn't actually.
Yeah, it says if you have Exodia, the game is over.
There you go.
It's similar to Exodia,
Okay,
Mage, and Mecha Cthulhu, right?
Okay, so
This effect goes if it dies.
How bad is this? Bad manners is this? Okay, so let's go back a couple months.
That's like saying, "Is this racist, Grant?"
Well, it might
We're gonna
be.
start like that.
Oh, I want to know now. I want to
how
know
bad is
now. I better
this?
get buckle my seatbelt here.
Okay, so you're playing against Kingsbane Rogue, and
Okay,
you
anything
realize
It's already
else,
BM.
No matter what you do.
like you're playing
It's
against Kingsbane Rogue, and you realize they're not going to win, but the game is not over. But you realize that you got them, you have them on lock.
Okay.
But they don't know it yet, and you just start, because you hate that deck so much, you start spamming like, "I will destroy you." You spam the threaten thing over and over,
Even when you're losing?
Okay, here's
No,
the
not
thing.
when you're losing.
I think that the threatening emote is way less of a BM than any of the other emotes. Hello is awful. Well played is awful. But threatening, just, I don't know, it doesn't really enrage me at all. It's kind of funny.
Anduin, wow. Wow. That one's bad. That one
I have to
messes with me a
say,
little
I
bit.
do miss
Yeah.
the sorry emote for
Amazing.
Magni players, Magni warriors. I'm so sorry, friend. That was the best.
Oh,
was the
so
best.
sorry, friend. Yeah. I wish they'd bring back the sorry emotes. I think we need to live in a little
I mean,
bit.
they did when you had the random stuff, right? When you could do sorry, it would change it when you're in the Tavern Brawl. It would just randomize your emotes or whatever. All right, guys, we got to talk about Hearthstone, where it's not just BM. So let's talk about the deck.
We've been talking about Hearthstone this entire time.
We got to give them something to play. Let's give them something to play. Get the people what they want. But people
already
want
said
different
this is a
things.
boring deck.
People want different
Okay.
things, Eve. Give the people what they want.
Well, okay, so we're gonna talk some warrior. We haven't really talked warrior in a while. I mean, warrior, like Wario, but with an R. Okay, more R's, I should say. So,
Gosh dang it.
so what led me to play warriors, I've already kind of alluded to, or actually maybe outright said, is that I have like 350 warrior wins, and I got to get that last golden class so I can say I beat the game. I have 12 arena wins. I've hit legend. I just got to get all 9 golden classes, and I beat the game. Right? That's how you do it. That's how you win Hearthstone.
Did you hit legend and wild? You did, didn't you?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
With big priest, no less.
Single digits?
I got up to rank 72.
Okay.
So I did pretty good. But
I'm not
yeah.
posting or anything.
Yeah, you that was the same. That was actually the month you hit legend, Eve. We both hit legend and wild, and you were like way far ahead of me. So.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry that I forgot in my hubris that I was so concentrating on my own win that I forgot yours.
Oh, I don't care. It's fine. I truly don't.
Let's
care.
get all the apologies out, folks. That's that kind of
I'm
week.
so sorry. Sorry for living. I'm sorry for just not paying attention.
Stealing my thunder. Go ahead.
That's quite all right. So, warrior. Here we are. So what was it on? I think on Tempo Storm a couple weeks ago. I looked and I saw that. Hunter was kind of, which it still is the tier 1 deck. Like, and if you're playing Hunter, it's not even like decks, it's like class. If you play a Hunter deck, you're playing a tier 1 deck. But Warrior was kind of intermingled in their tier 1s as well. And I thought, what? So I didn't really want to play it because Warrior is just my least favorite class to play, or at least it traditionally has been. It's just not something. It just, games seemed a little slow.
Did
seems
you ever
play
Patron Warrior back in the day?
Well, I did, but I wasn't very good at Hearthstone back then. So
awful at that deck.
It's another deck that, like, if they were to bring it back as in its original incarnation, I would
Remember
play
that Tavern
deck.
Brawl?
Well,
I played
yeah,
so much Oil Rogue in that Tavern Brawl.
I wanted to play Oil Rogue. It was like, no, it
Yeah.
ain't no Patron. It was only Oil Rogue. So that's all I cared about. But I would play Patron now that I kind of know how to play Hearthstone better. Because back in those days when Patron was around, I wasn't really serious about laddering. I think my highest rank was 15. You
But
know,
you love figuring out decks and
I
finding
do.
out how to work. And I think Patron would be like one of those beautiful mind moments for you where you had to like do
All
all
the
the
pieces
math.
come together. Well,
Yes.
I mean, I don't even know that I'd still even be able to play it good because there's lots of decks that are I would say as challenging as Patron to make work that I don't know that I could play them very well now. So, but this warrior deck is a pretty straightforward deck. I believe it's Soleil's list, and I'll just tell you what's in it. It is an odd quest warrior. There are odd warriors and there are quest warriors, but really it's hard to pass up the four armor. So odd quest it is. It has Fireplume's Heart, the quest, 2 shield slams, one town crier, excuse me, 2 town criers, 2 Phantom Militia, 2 Reckless Furies, 2 Shield Blocks, 2 Stonehill Defenders, 2 Tar Creepers, 2 Brawls, 2 Direhorn Hashlings, 2 Dynomatics, 2 Super Colliders, 2 Witchwood Grizzlies, Ziliacs, 2 Armani Warbears, the red kind, Baku the Moon Eater, and Undasta. Make your beasts run faster. So,
Eve, he's learning. He's learning. I'm so
what?
proud.
What?
He
What
said
did
the
I
red
do?
kinds for the Amani
The red.
Warbears.
Oh yes, because I remembered. You told me. The purple ones are the ones that are like the noobs.
The
Get 'em.
discount ones that I have.
The discount dollar store varieties.
The dollar store Amani Warbear.
The dollar store money work. So, anyways, deck's pretty straightforward. Um, see where do I start? Basically a couple things. There's a lot of control. If you're playing control, keep the quest. If you're playing against aggro, you might like if you know it's like if it's a rogue deck, good or it's a good bet you don't need the quest. If it's a shaman deck, ooh, tough call,
Buckle
but
up.
you might buckle up because if you keep the quest, it could benefit you later. But the reality is, you just want to be able to put taunts and clear board for against shaman. So if it's and hunter's hard because if it's a secret hunter or an aggro-ish hunter, it depends. It's hard to know whether you should keep it or not. I have thrown it away. I usually keep it for hunter because I want to be able to just if they get their death knight, I want to be able to have some kind of infinite value where I can just keep shooting their big giant minions that they put up. Like especially if they put up a vicious fledgling that has stealth on it, I want to be able to kill it or have a chance of killing it before it hits me in the face for 20 or something silly like that. So deciding if you're playing against aggro or control is important. If you're playing against priest, keep the quest. If you're playing against warlock, keep the quest. Because really, there's not much aggro warlock running around. I actually don't ever keep town criers because town crier brings out minions that have rush, and those are usually 5 or higher, and you don't want a 5 or higher in your hand anytime soon. And you need to. You wanna usually fish for removal and 3 drops. Reckless Fury, I tend to keep for the most part. I tend to keep Brawls. I tend to keep Tar Creepers and Stonehill Defenders. Those are my favorites. If it's against like a rogue or something, I probably might even keep a Phantom Militia just so I can have something to stall them. So if I have no minions, and I mean it's everybody wants to play Phantom Militia and get the 2 or 3 different taunts so they can just like clear their quest real easy on turn 6 or turn 9. But I sometimes will keep it and just play it on turn 3 just because you got to put a body down. Um, Against aggro, the goal is just get bodies down, and try to clear their board as best you can and run them out of resources. You almost never get to the quest with aggro, especially if it's a odd rogue. So don't feel bad if you have to pitch the quest. The only bummer is like when you're hoping for a taunt and you pull the quest late game, that kind of feels bad, but it's still, I think, smarter in a bigger picture sense
It
to
gives you
take
chance
removal
early
and
as the whole goal.
right.
If you
Now,
don't draw
if
the
you
quest
get
by like turn 8, then you're probably okay.
yeah. And I would say that like let's say you get coin on the coin and you have a really good couple 3 drop taunts and like 1 board clear, like maybe 1 reckless flurry or 1 brawl, or maybe even a dynamatic, depending. You might keep the quest if on the coin because you have a very clear game plan, and they're not going to be able to hit you in the face too easily, and you'll be able to buy time. So, in that sense, maybe. But if you have no coin and your mulligan is bad, like you have 2 or 3 5 drop, and then like let's say Undasta. It's like no, get rid of the quest because you need to have more options because you can win those aggro matches really easily actually if you play smart. If you have early 3-drop taunts, that's kind of just the name of the game. 3-drop taunts is really hard for them to win because they need to get a good board where they can clear your taunts easily. But if they have to run their turn 1, turn 2 minions into your Tar Creeper, they just can never build enough steam. So that's the way to go with that.
It's interesting you say you don't hold your town criers, because to me it seems like you're able to pull out a card that you don't want to draw early, like the Amani or the Undasta. You're pulling out a heavy card, but it's not going to benefit you right away. It may not even benefit you late game, but it's going to benefit each of one of your subsequent draws because of that, and it's going to give you a body early that's a 1/2 on turn 1 if you have it. So it's interesting to me that you don't keep them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't usually keep them because my turn 1, if it's situational depending on what else I draw. I think every now and again I'll keep them, but I found that it just doesn't really. I'm always disappointed because I put it down, and if it's an aggro deck, a lot of times they'll just ignore it because they know that like what's a town crier going to do to their minions beside maybe clear like a 2/1 or a 1/1, which a lot of times they don't have because like Rogue, their best turn 1 is playing the Fireflies, and town crier is not going to really do anything to it, so they'll just hit me in the face. You know what I mean? So I would rather have removal in a 3-drop taunt.
Okay.
That's just my preference. Now I'm feel free to at me and tell me why I'm wrong, but I just don't find town criers to be that useful. I like them better late game. It's like town crier. Oh yeah, I'm gonna play that and I'm gonna get my Armani Warbear and then clear your dude. Boom.
So it's like a
or
1 mana
Undasta.
draw Undasta if you haven't yet, or
Yes.
1 mana draw your Amani Warbear if you haven't yet.
Well, I mean, think about it. You play it late game. You have Undasta in hand.
3 cards
or
that
you
it
don't have
pulls.
Undasta in hand. So you need your Warbear, or you need to put down you need to clear a minion and put down a free, I don't know, Witchwood Grizzly. One, play that, get the Witchwood Grizzly.
Is Baku a
Or
beast?
not the Witchwood. I'm sorry, Baku is a beast. Yes, Witchwood Grizzly can't charge, but if you need,
But
so
Undasta
you pull
gives
your
it rush,
Undasta is
right?
what I'm trying to say. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is you don't have Undasta. You've pulled your other stuff. You play the Town Crier. You get Undasta. You play Undasta. You clear a minion. Plus, you get to put up a taunt at the same time. That's ideal
It's your
in
swing.
Hearthstone, right?
Okay.
Clearing a board and building a board at the same time is like the best thing you can do, and which
Okay.
is why I think this deck is better than it used to be, because you have that capability. Now, some people were like, "No, Undasta is just not that good." So we can talk about what you can do. Non-Undasta lists, I noticed, run a silence. They'll run owl and they'll run ooze to clear weapons. So it just kind of helps you
Gets that hunter
silence.
matchup.
Yeah, it silences the hunter. It's better for hunter. It, if a hunter doesn't have candle shot, it hurts them a lot more, because that's where this deck can get kind of frustrating, is because you think you're slowing them down. It's like a couple board full of wolves. Okay, I'll put this taunt down. It'll eat a couple of them, buy me some time. Like, no, candle shot, hunter's mark. Okay, now you're dead. It's
Yeah. You
that
take
can be very
12.
frustrating.
Yeah.
So I think if you're seeing a lot of hunter, it makes a lot of sense to sub in those cards like weapon removal plus silence to silence the eggs, because Death Rattle Hunter is a pretty hard matchup, because clear their board, so what? Then they have a board that just kind of pops up into place. But the other hunter matchups, the aggro hunter matchups and the secret hunter matchups, are a lot more winnable. And I'm not 8-0 with it, but I'm on an 8-game win streak. I streaked up from 5 to 3-2. So I'm doing pretty well with it based on like those matchups and what I'm seeing. A lot of priest, a lot of hunter, with an occasional warlock or mage smattered in there.
Eve, any questions?
like-
So Undasta has rush.
Yeah.
And then if it overkills something, then you get to put a beast just out of your hand onto the
It pulls a beast.
With and gives it
Undasta
rush.
pulling out Baku is pretty cool.
Yeah, it doesn't give the beast rush. It just
doesn't give
pulls
it rush.
something and-
No, it was one
Summon
of the
a beast from your
play
hand. Yeah,
something.
you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
summon
a
I'm
beast.
thinking of the
Druid
other
card.
druid card. Yeah.
Yeah, that did that.
It's a
and there
6
was
mana
Undasta.
stampeding roar or something like that. It's like summon a beast from your hand, give it rush. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Amani Boarbear has rush. So if you can craft your hand to where Undasta has rush, kill a fatty, and then pull out Amani Warbear and kill another minion, that's really good. It's a good swingy turn thing to do.
See, that's what I was asking about earlier. That's a fun turn, right, Grant?
That's a fun term, but it doesn't always. It's kind of the way that you play
It's
this deck is.
defensive.
It
It's not
feels like you're in
offensive.
free. Like it feels like you're base jumping. Feels like you're falling, and you feels like you're way closer to the ground than you'd like to be. Then you pull the cord, and then you're safe again. I mean, I've won games where I've gotten below 5 health and just gradually just clawed my way out and had full armor and a
And then there's other
decent board.
times where the deck just gets every taunt that you need on every single turn, and you flip the switch to
Yes.
go rag, and you're just going boom, 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 8
Mhm.
damage every turn, and you're like, you got to deal with this sometime, and it's got to be soon. So the thing about the Odd Warrior, I think that Grant really likes, personally, again, this is just me projecting, but I think that Grant
Projecting.
likes the deck because it is flexible. He likes the flexibility that the deck has.
Well, I kind of find myself liking decks that have a little bit of RNG in them. Like where's this rag shot gonna go? There's a little bit of titillation that goes along with, well, let's say I have a 1 in 3 chance to win this game. I wonder if I can do it. Oh, what do you know? I won. I had a game the other day where the bro had 3 minions and no, 2 minions, and I cleared one with face, and I was like, with a minion or with my face with my weapon, like, all right, if I hit face, I win. If I don't hit face, well, I'm still in the game, but let's see what we got. And survey says face blows up. I do like decks that do that. But there's a few flex spots in this deck if you're interested. Like if you don't have Undasta, which some people don't, but you have Lich King, that's a good inclusion. Lich
Lich
King is a
King's
taunt.
always a good.
Helps you complete quest, and Lich King can also flip a board because you can clear a board, with what's that? What's the one that just wipes the board, but then you lose cards. It also has some burst and things like that. So some people put Pixie in the deck. So they get a clear board and hero power, Pixie hero power for 16 damage.
Or plus
That
8
can
health, depending on your circumstances.
uh-huh. Yeah, I mean
I think the RNG is also for not every game to be exactly the same. Like
yes.
that's why I like RNG cards indexes so that you don't know this is exactly how it's going to play out every single time because
Right.
it allows you to play a deck for longer without just getting sick and tired.
It
Yeah.
also teaches you how to play around RNG a little bit better. I like that about this deck, where it's like, okay, well, I can improve my percentage of winning by reducing their minions, or I
Mhm.
can use my rag shot after I hit a couple things to get a better chance of clearing their minion that I need to kill. So you can kind of plan the RNG a little bit more. You're saying, okay, well, if I flip a coin,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that if it's a 50-50 shot, that both are favorable and one is just a little bit
Mhm.
more.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, so I was thinking about like a couple little tips, like little nuggets that you can use for this is
Little nuggets.
if you're playing if you're playing a matchup, uh use your brawls before you use your let's put it this way. If you pull a late game shield block, save that and don't use it to draw cards if you don't absolutely need it, because it makes your reckless flurries worth something late game after you've got the hero power. Because what really sucks is you get rid of your armor, you go to the rag shots, and then they're able to, like Hunter will play uh Zul'jin, and then they have a board full of wolves and beasts and stuff that want to rush
And then
you
you
in the
can
face.
shield block flurry and kill
And
everything.
you shield block flurry, and life is great, right?
Yeah.
I never keep shield blocks in my opening mulligan because the armor is 4 and 5 is not that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things, and the card draw is fine, but I like to keep that card as like I know I can have armor at some point in time later in the game when I know I'm going to need it, because I can clear your board earlier with my taunts, but on those swing turns that Hunter will try to do, I really want that shield block later game.
It's like having a handful of equality cards.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And it's important. Other things, don't be afraid of playing Witchwood Grizzlies on curve if that's what you have. With this deck, you got to play on curve. If you play on curve, you're doing good. A lot of people are like, yeah, but it's only going to be like a 3/4 Grizzly. So it's getting you, if it's against
It's
control,
blocking something.
whatever.
It's getting the quest going. It's doing something.
Mhm.
It's not useless.
Yeah, just because, especially like against aggro decks, remember, you have to think of your taunt cards are like life. And if they're not hitting you in the face, you're gaining life, so you have to kind of do that sort of
It's
math in
hard
your
for
head.
me because value cards, I really want to play them to their best value possible.
Right.
And it's so hard to drop them when you know this is not getting its good value, but there are definitely a lot of decks where you got to go against it and just drop it. Even if you're not comboing your rogue card and you're just playing it, you just have to swallow your pride and do it
Well,
when you have to.
I'll be honest, it's a weird feeling to like to dump the quest. You have the quest in your open hand to pitch it. That's a weird feeling. It feels so counterintuitive. Like,
Yeah.
You
oh
go to
man,
the
this is a
bank
quest
and
deck
you
and I'm
trade your
pitching.
value for tempo, because that's
It's
what you got to do.
crazy. What's
Yeah.
what you just got to do. And there's a couple mashups where it is the right play. Even if they act like, let's say it's rogue, I'm gonna pitch it. You know. And then one time I pitched it and it ended up being like some kind of weird death rattly rogue or something or other. And I was like, well, geez, I wish I had the quest. I still won, but the whole time I was like, well, this is I feel really uncomfortable. I feel like I'm out of my comfort zone here. I really wish I had the quest, but I thought, no, dummy. The most of the rogues you see are odd rogues. So this is
Yeah.
just
And
this is just
Kingsbane's
Don't
gone,
let this
basically.
change your
So you have
future
to remember
decisions.
that. You can't
Yeah.
tech your deck for a Kingsbane rogue anymore because they're just not there after the nerfs.
yeah. Praise the Lord.
Thank
Um,
Ugh.
But another things don't forget that you can do, because sometimes if you get low on health, is that Ziliax combos in with Dynamatics. So another kind of swing board, clear board, and then Dynamatic, clear the board, Ziliax on the Dynamatic, and then use it for rush and get that massive health boost, get
Mhm.
some 6 extra health. Ziliax
Is
almost
Dynamatic
always. Yep.
It's a 3/4
Magma
warrior
Dynamatic.
card. Mech.
It's a 5 cost 3/4 that does 5 damage spread around the board to all non-mech minions.
Okay.
So something to
So
keep
it's like
in mind.
arcane missiles for or what's it called? Spreading, is it not spreading plague? Spreading madness? Is that the warlock
Spreading
card?
Madness. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like spreading madness, but
Madness.
it can't hit face and it doesn't hit mechs. So it has like some restrictions on it.
And be careful that when you play it, that you're not playing it against opposite another mech, because I did that the other day. I played like, all right, and clear the minion, and I'm like, why didn't it do anything? And I'm like, oh man, it was a mech. I wasn't paying attention, and feels kind of stupid.
Probably
when
closer to
you do
actually like
that.
a mad bomber now that I think about it.
Yeah, it's a lot like that.
I forgot
but
the whole you can't devolve giants.
Ooh, unless they're 10 mana.
Yep, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, like magma ones.
I mean,
They don't
against
devolve.
against hunters and or other decks, like sometimes even lock, depending if they get giants out, Super Collider's your buddy. Super Collider is so mean sometimes when like when they put a board full of wolves, it's like, man, I can just hit any wolf I want and it'll clear another one for me. So you save yourself damage with that card. Hunters hate that card because you can clear their board rather neatly if you're because you
That
you
card
have
art
it
is
for
so
multiple
trippy
turns.
too. I think that
Yeah.
that
Super
card art is so
Collider
weird.
is the weapon that makes a minion attack another minion.
Yep.
Is that the
Well,
one?
yeah. So you hit it and it bumps it into a minion stand side. Now, just I know people know this, but it's worth repeating. Be very careful about like what minion you attack, because sometimes you forget that the minion can go both ways. So like if you have 3 minions and you attack the middle one, it doesn't go to necessarily the direction you hope it goes. It could go both ways, and I hate to admit it, but I've forgotten that sometimes. So you have to kind of plan. All right, minion on the left is going to bump in, and a smart opponent will realize that and position their minions well. But every now and again, you'll get somebody who just doesn't pay attention to that, and they're like, "Ha, sucker! You put your hogger right next to, a minion that can kill it. So I'll kill the little weenie minion, and you lose your huffer." So I
Yeah.
think I said hogger, but
Yeah.
anyways,
We knew what you were saying.
I
knew
know
what
what
I
you
meant.
meant.
the piggy that oinks
The
at you
little
before
piggy
it
that
delivers.
everyone hates.
Always hogger.
Always
Huffer.
huffer.
Always
huffer.
hogger?
Always hogger? Question.
Yeah, gotta say it
So
like that.
I mean,
Always hogger?
any questions for me
Me
about
like
this
taunt?
that I hadn't thought of? Hey,
Has
bro, I
this
heard you like
changed
taunt.
how you feel about Warrior?
A little bit, because like I said,
Dinosaurs
like
are
once I feel
involved?
like yeah, dinosaurs are involved.
Dinosaurs
Once,
and mechs. I mean,
yeah, mechs are always a win for me, but I think it's just because I understand the deck better. But I mean, I was playing Quest Warrior the first week it came out, back when
me too.
I was
Oro
too.
came out, and so
I played
but
Recruit Warrior when
hasn't
it
really.
first released.
I
That was
always come
fun.
back to it every month. I play a little bit of it and go, meh. But finally, I was like, and I got to thinking, I was like, every time I've hit Legend was when I just played a deck and forced myself to play it, even if it wasn't winning. Like when I played Big Priest, I hit Legend. When I played Gunther Mage, I hit Legend. And Q Block is like, even if I wasn't winning, I was like, I'm gonna play this deck and play this deck until I just know how to play it. And I thought maybe that's kind of my problem lately is I just like playing such a big variety of things that I become a jack of all trades, master of none, if you will.
Mm.
So I'm going to play this deck, and I have an excuse if I have to get 150 wins to get a Golden Warrior. So that's what I'm going to do.
You got something to motivate you to do it.
Yeah. So
It's
it's a
honestly
win-win.
something that was just really stable. It's got a big amount of different kinds of decks that it's decent against, that you have a chance
Mhm.
against. That's why I played it a lot when there were a whole bunch of different kinds of decks in the meta, because it was just really reliable. Kind of boring for me personally, but still
Yeah.
really reliable. So yeah.
It is reliable. I'm glad you brought that up because why would you play this deck? It's technically right now on HS top decks, it's considered a tier 2 deck. But I think that it really does well against the field. Like you just said, Eve, it can win most matchups. It has very few matchups that it's I don't think there's any matchups that are extremely polarizing. There's no 90-10 matchups with this deck. I think you might have some 40-60s maybe, but even so you can still win because if they don't draw well and you draw on curve, you just have a board they have to deal with and then you can start rag shotting them and it's like, well, it can really do work for you, especially if you don't know what you're going against. So I've seen some silly things. Like I played against a paladin that did a really sweet version of using Shrivala, and then what's that? What's that card? Is it Holy Wrath? Whatever that is. What is that card that like pulls a
Yeah.
card and whatever its cost
Oh
is does
yeah.
that
Holy Wrath.
damage?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it.
he cycled multiple copies. He used the banker to dump Shrivala back into his deck to where he knew it was in. So
Mhm.
he saved himself with Shrivala, dumped it back into his deck, and then Holy
Did it
Wrath me
again.
for 25. And I was like, slow, Shia LaBeouf clap kind of thing. And like, all right, that was sweet. But I felt like I had a chance. I didn't feel like I just got pwned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I always like feeling like I'm in the game, and if I'm not in the game, that's probably when I'll switch decks. Like, oh, this deck just doesn't feel like it's in the game often enough. But this deck is solid enough where I think so. I mean, eight game win streak 5-3 is at that rank. I feel is good proof that it can do well against the field. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
I got up to rank 17 with Whiz Bang.
oh, did you?
I just
Wait, wow.
decided that if I play with no expectation of winning, just
Mhm.
going in to have fun, then I
Mhm.
get less ragey.
Yeah,
So I thought this is how I'm going to get back into Hearthstone after not playing for a really long time, is to play Whiz Bang.
Mm.
this bang is fun.
He actually has some pretty decent decks,
He does. He really does. He really does.
like
I
some
wonder if
decks that are almost meta.
I would be interested if somebody put a challenge out there, like using only Whiz Bang, like who can get to Legend first.
I feel
You
like
know,
they've done that. Like the first
I
time
feel
he was
like yeah,
created, I think
Toast and
somebody
Dog
did
did
that.
something like that.
Whiz Bang to Legend. Yeah.
well,
I'm
if
pretty
they
sure
did
it's
it, I
done.
might have. I never heard how it resolved. Maybe it would just nobody cared. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they did it. I'll have to look it up, but I believe it's been done.
Mm. Mm.
He's fun though.
Well,
So if you're feeling kind of salty against the meta and you have Whiz Bang, try him out. He might be the rest you need.
is there anything else that we want to talk about for this deck? Because I feel like we covered a lot of the bases here. I mean, the only
Yeah,
thing I
we
would
talked
say is
about
maybe like
substitutions. And
subs and Stonehill Defender. Like, what do you want to choose? But I mean, it's pretty situational
well,
to discuss.
yeah,
Lich King?
Stonefield's.
Always Lich King.
Well, I mean, if
Always
it's
Lich
well, that's a good question. So Stonehill Defender. If you're playing against control, you pick the taunt that'll give you the most value.
Or the one you can play.
Direhorn
If I
something,
play, I
right?
found with what
Direhorn?
dire horns are very common. Lich King
Because they
shows
have
up often.
a death rattle which gives you another taunt in your deck, right?
They're also
Yeah,
beasts that
yeah.
Undasa can pull, by the way.
Oh.
I found that one of the things I like to do with Stonehill is as long as depending on what the game I was playing, if I was playing more of an aggro matchup like a shaman or a paladin, mid range to aggro, I always wanted to pick a taunt that would help me either help me put multiple taunts out on the turn or help me put the next taunt I put out is on curve. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
So a low cost, like you want a 2 if
You
you
just
put
get the
it down.
charge of
How
the
much is
quest
Stonehill
or
Defender?
difference.
How much
Right.
mana is Stonehill?
3.
Stonehill's 3.
So you might want to choose a 4.
Yeah. A 4.
Yeah, because you're
I
filling in the gaps for playing odd. You can get
Mhm.
even
Great.
stuff from Stonehill.
Mhm.
That's true too.
Well, like sometimes Senjin Shieldmaster is your best buddy. You know, because a
'Cause he's
3/5
4.
against an aggro on turn 4 is a good card. You know
5
what I
is a
mean?
lot of health to take out for aggro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Huffer ain't gonna do it.
because the cool thing is all you have to do is survive against aggro for the most part. You almost, if you can survive, then you just start
They
armoring
run
up,
out of gas.
and then they run out of gas. So now with Rogue, you got to be careful because if you watch them, they might seem like they're running out of gas, but you watch for that Leroy top deck or you watch for the Leroy cold blood thing. Because if they're holding a card in their hand and they're just not touching that card, it's like, oh yeah, it's Leroy, or that's a combo card. Expect rogues to always have Vile Spine. Like, try to never put yourself into positions like, well, I'll be okay as long as they don't have Vile Spine. Because you say that, you
Because
know
they
what's coming
will.
down. They're gonna flop that thing down and be like, yeah, yeah, boo boo. The moment, so plan around that. But that's about
So
all.
you
I
would
don't.
say maybe it's your least favorite matchup is aggro rogue?
Not really. Uh, Tough matchups are like clone priests, the decks that can just blow you to smithereens out of nowhere. Because like,
Mm.
and an Exodia Paladin can be a little tricky too, because if you know it's Exodia Paladin, don't even trade. Just go face, go face, go face, go face, because they can heal. But you want to try and bank that they're like me and they get Uther in their bottom 3 cards every time they play. So because if they don't get Uther, they can't win. They just can't win very easily.
Never
So
Uther.
never
You
Uther.
want to put them on the back foot so they're not slowly playing out their game. If it's something that you are
Hmm.
like bad matchup against, then you just get super aggressive.
Hmm. Yeah, you want to complete the quest as much as you can. Same story for the mirror. Mirror. Fuck. Because it really is just like who gets the better draw. I think in terms of the mirror.
Who gets a better drop off of Stonehill?
But yeah, I mean,
Or whoever gets their taunts quicker.
if you get your taunts and you curve out and you can start rag shotting them right away, the first thing starts rag shotting,
Yeah, the
almost
first rag
always
shot
wins.
decides the game generally.
Hmm. Because you can't
Yeah.
sustain a board when your opponent can rag shot you and
Get
develop.
one more than you.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. So you might think, haha, I'm gonna out clever you by just trying to armor out of your rag shot distance. No, eventually
That doesn't work.
it just doesn't work. So just race for the rag shots, which sounds so weird.
Get to rag as fast as you
Race
can.
to rag.
Race to rag.
Rag race.
It's a rag.
Sentences that out of
It's a rag
context
race.
probably
It
sound
is a rag
very
race.
odd.
That's if I ever get this deck built in my collection, I'm gonna call it Rag Race. That's all I'm gonna do.
You probably have all the cards. There's not that many.
Yeah,
new
you
cards.
know what? I did
Undasta?
create Undasta for that Druid deck, so I think I have all
Yeah.
these.
Yeah. It's not a terribly. I wouldn't call it a terribly expensive deck, honestly.
Has what, 2
Especially
legendaries?
if you consider that all the Ungoro cards and
Oh,
stuff
3.
like that.
Has 3 legendaries. It has, let's see, Super
Fire Plumes
Collider
are
times 2 is epics.
Ziliax, Undasta.
And Baku.
Baku the Moon Eater is also
Reckless Flurries are
So that's
epics,
4.
aren't they?
And Town
I think
Criers
they're
and Shield Snap. Yeah, Fire Plume's Heart. So that's 4 legendaries. Yeah,
Okay.
this is pretty expensive, Grant. Most of this is epic. Shield Slams,
But
Town
there's a
Criers,
lot of
Reckless
them-
Flurries, Brawls, Super Colliders, and then you
Well,
have.
Like Baku, you probably have. Come on, if you have been
Well,
playing,
yeah, Baku is
like,
some one of those
time, you
things
have
where you have to
brawls.
kind of like.
You're probably
throw out
not
the window,
crafting
right?
your brawls at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone has
No.
to have a brawl or two.
Well, and that's what I mean by that is a lot of these cards have been, for me, I think of expense in terms of Hearthstone decks maybe a little different than a lot of people. Like a lot of people
Mhm.
just take it face value, 2,000 or 5,000.
They're counting
bucks, let's
dust.
say.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
counting dust, but like I look at it in terms of longevity. Like, okay, Ungoro cards are going to seem, a lot of people are more likely to have Ungoro cards because
By
the
now.
set's almost rotating out. And classic cards like Brawls, if you have played any kind of warrior ever, you're going to have the Shield Slams, you're going to have the Brawls, that kind
Yep.
of stuff. So
The longevity of the
Ziliax is
cards
played in multiple
necessitates that.
decks,
Yeah.
right? So Ziliax you probably have because it's
He's a-
been seen in a bunch of different decks.
and he's probably on everybody the top 3 or top 5 crafts. Like if you don't know what to craft these cards, Ziliax shows up all the time just because he's
Yeah.
a good card.
And
So,
Baku, I mean,
same with Baku.
yeah.
Totally
So
playable
probably
and wild.
Undasta and maybe Super Collider.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I can see
those-
being the problem cards for crafting. And maybe
Yeah.
the quest, if you got unlucky with your quest, I could see that too.
Yeah, at this point you don't want to be crafting Fire Plume's Heart.
Unless you
No,
plan to
not
try
really.
running the wild version of something like this, and I'm not sure how powerful that is right now.
Yeah, there's better decks in wild. Like
Yeah.
Echo Mage. No.
Grant, no more tangents, okay? Children. Kids.
Should we
No.
should we progress the show on, Rob?
Yeah, I think it's about that time.
Yeah.
Well,
no.
folks, it's it's really hard for me to say this. So I'm just gonna say it. This is the final Velen's Chosen, not in number, but for me. So I will no longer be hosting the show, running streams, boring you with my dulcet tones, memeing to oblivion with King Julian, or pretty much running most of the back end for getting the production side of things going, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't really know
We've
what
had
else to
all
say.
of our crying earlier, like sat down and talked what's happening. Grant and
Yeah.
I getting all teary-eyed and choked up, and
I mean, what do you guys think that was your questions initially? Because, like, I don't really know what else to say. I did
Well,
talk
you
with somebody last night, so I'll talk with Cap a little bit about something that I said I would put on the show, which is something called Impostor Syndrome. And I'll talk about that first, and kind of maybe that'll be a catalyst for some Imposter
What's
Syndrome.
that?
you
What is
you
that?
feel that, Rob?
So Imposter
Imposter
Syndrome
is when you feel like you're a fake. Like if anybody found out the real you behind this act that you put on, like you're not as smart as you come across as. And yeah, how does that apply to you, Rob?
So, imposter syndrome is one of these things that some people just have as like a mental health issue or something that they just constantly struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Matt Mercer actually has talked a lot about this, and he's the guy who voices McCree in Overwatch, Ragnaros, the Fire Lord, and Nefarian in Hearthstone. And he runs the Dungeons & Dragons campaign Critical Role. But the thing for me is I never really got imposter syndrome, or a variation of it, I guess you could say, because I have not gotten properly diagnosed for any form of mental health ever. Or mental disabilities, I should probably say. That's probably better. Until I moved to Japan and Omnic Lab started getting really big, and then I went to 1 and then 2 BlizzCons after this year. And don't get me wrong, Omnic Lab is big, but it's not like it's a major.
People with imposter syndrome tend to undercut their own achievements. They tend to talk themselves down and say, what I've done isn't that great. I'm not that great. Everything that I've achieved is not that great. You're doing that right now, Rob.
Yeah,
Everything you did is
somewhat.
amazing.
So that's what I'm trying to
You're
taper it a
amazing.
little
The
bit.
show
But
is amazing.
the whole thing is that it kind of I've realized I've had it a little bit longer than I thought, because of the whole moving to Japan, because I feel like the imposter syndrome is less about that and more about being disconnected and being away from people and being in an environment that's totally new, and culture shock not really ever really happening and kind of manifesting itself in just different ways. And I've always heard that culture shock always happens. It's just a matter of how it manifests itself, and I've never really seen that. And so push comes to shove, basically. It has nothing to do with Velen's, but over the course of 2 years of living here and kind of trying to articulate what's been going on, there has been just a lot of really difficult things here that are unrelated to production at all. But there's also stuff that made production super hard. Like when I moved to Japan, it was a major decision for Andrew as to why he had to leave, was scheduling. It was one of the main things that he told us. And it's not ever gotten better. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's gotten better in the sense that we figured something out, but it doesn't get any easier. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Right.
And to give you guys an idea of what life has been like for about 2 years now, I don't get weekends. So every Friday night or every Saturday morning for me is Omnic Lab production night. And that means 10, 11 p.m. start times or 9 to 10, or like anywhere between 9 to 11 start times on Saturdays for Omnic Lab. Sometimes we have to adjust this, and anytime we miss a show or need to reschedule it or do something else, it means that I am up until like 1 in the morning having to do something. And then I have work the following day. And then for Velen's has been fairly static, which is good for us because all of us are very habitual people. Thank the Lord.
Yeah, there you go.
And Velen's has been at this time. We started around 10 or 11, depending on, daylight savings time. Between 10 and noon on Sunday for me, and really late for you guys, or rather really late for Grant or East Coasters, and fairly late for West Coast.
Yeah, it's just 7 for me, 7 p.m.
Yeah, so it's not too bad. But it is if you're like trying to cram things in and get kids moving around after supper and stuff, and then you're kind of getting a late start on it.
Yeah, trying to get them to be quiet and like go to bed or just be somewhere so I can record is
Right.
not always easy.
Yeah.
So also just quick shout out and side notes, StarCraft 2 donated 100 bits on our live stream. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, bro.
Nice.
I saw Grant post something and I was like, well, I might as well say it now. So anyways, I don't know if you guys remember any of the questions you had initially. I'm more than happy to be around in the Discord.
Well, you're not necessarily leaving the community per se. You're just bowing out of
this production.
Basically, I mean, kind of you and I have talked about you leaving for months now because Rob's the kind of guy. Just shout out to our audience so you guys know. I don't know anybody that works as hard as Rob May in terms of like the integrity that he has to put things going. Like he produces for me and Eve like hour-long plus videos in minute detail just so that we can have an easier time trying to do production. And like the character that he has shown for years now, just to put the show on and put like an excellent product as best as he possibly could. And if he doesn't know how to do it, he figures out how to do it better, or learns how to do it and then figures out how to do it better, and then like makes macros and makes like templates and stuff like that to make it smoother and more streamlined. I mean, it's he puts so much work into it that I wish I could fully express to you guys, the listeners, like how much labor of love it is for him to do it. And having said that, it he needs time to be a human and spend time with his wife and spend time on weekends not doing more work, because he's got his work week, teaching English in Japan, and then he's doing shows, multiple shows, and no person can go that hard that long and not face a form of burnout. And he just came to us and said, Velen's, he didn't want to leave, but it's the logical choice given all things considered. And we were like, yeah, there's nothing personal that we knew about anyways. Unless Rob's an amazing liar, which I don't think he is.
You could talk to my wife. I can't lie about anything.
But I mean, I'm just saying that, Rob, because I know you, given what you said at the front of our discussion, like it might sound like we're brown nosing, but he's a hardworking man. And like, if I was to ever interview him for like a job in the States, like if I was to be like the hirer, I'd be like, you're on my team, like now, not just because he's my friend, not just because he's my co-host, because I know he's gonna work his butt off. And if anybody wants to hire him and get him out of Japan and the States, give him a call. But
I mean, it
Yeah,
depends
since
on
the
the
very
skill set, to
beginning.
be honest, because my skill
Well, I
set's
know,
pretty
but
limited. But
that's everybody, though.
It's all about the job ethic, though. The work ethic
Mhm.
is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, but from the very beginning, like Rob was the one who made Valen's every step of the way,
Mhm.
who had the drive, who had the reach, who tried to get people involved and try and take it from something that was just like, with Andrew and me and him together, just kind of a pet project, and then grew it and grew it and grew it till we have a web page, and then we're on Twitch and we have
Mhm.
this huge following. And it never would have moved as far as it did without his constant, oh, I have this idea and let's put
Mhm.
this into play. And behind all of that is so much hard work that you don't see,
Mhm.
all the time and all the effort that he put into it. And he made it easy for me
Mhm.
because I didn't have a lot of time that I could set aside for the podcast. I could work on show notes during the week and do some research on lore, but all of the hard work that makes everything run so smoothly behind the scenes that people don't ever know was Rob the entire time.
Yep.
And we could just show up and know that things were going to go well. If
Yeah.
I remembered to press record, we're good to go.
To
Yeah.
be fair, Eve wasn't the only one. This happened on everyone's end at least once or twice.
We've
to
all
be
done
fair,
it. We've all
over
done
the
it.
course of 3
And
years of production, it always has going to happen to you. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Just
But he
part
No
of
just
one
the
raised the
escapes.
level of what Valen's could be. You know, it could have just been a little homegrown podcast, but then there was like this level of professionality to it. You know, I just invented a word there. The graphics and just all of the background stuff that lifted it above a little thing and started to make it more polished and bigger. And all of that was Rob constantly pushing and having ideas for making the show reach more people and have a higher level of audio quality. And, you know,
Yeah. If you
I
want to
was,
hear something special, go back to episode 1.
yeah.
Listen to the
If you
audio
want to
quality
see
in the
the
first couple episodes.
comparison,
I'm
how
glad that you
far
guys actually can't have access to that anymore.
Oh,
But
really?
is
there,
it gone?
well, it's not gone. If you go to the website, you can find it. But it's something that Andres and I found about using FeedBurner is that when you get past 100 episodes,
Uh-huh.
they don't list them in the iTunes feed anymore. So you can only go back a max of 100 episodes unless you go to the website or whatever. So I'll be talking to Eve and Grant when Andres finalizes everything because he's actually finishing up a big project with school and finishing school in February. So if he can tell me what's going on, and I can talk with Eve and Grant about stuff on the back end to get them off the ground so we can get that going. But it does cost money to do that, and it gets you into Spotify, and so that's why Andres and I were really motivated for it. But our budget's a lot bigger for that show, even though we've actually taken a gigantic hit over the last 6 months. We've gone down a lot for that show from costs, like production, but that's a completely different story. But to kind of give you a little bit more clarity now that I've been hearing you guys brown nose for long enough,
Are you telling
You-
us to be quiet? Are you telling
yeah.
us to shut up?
It's only brown
Talking
nosing
to
if it's
me?
not true. Every word of it was true.
I am not a suck up. I do not suck up.
Anyways, so the other things that have also kind of come out of this is it's not hiding. Like well, you guys know how bad I am at lying already because you know that I can't hide when I'm not playing Hearthstone. Like it's very obvious. I don't
You
know
just
what
say
I'm
you're not
talking
playing.
about. I don't have any decks that I'm playing. I don't have any good insight to ask Grant good questions when he's breaking down something. The production show notes have really been lacking a lot unless Grant and Eve have been putting themselves into them outside of like linking up things. Grant has planned almost every interview except for Mackenzie over the last year. There's just this is mostly for the development that is actually listening to this podcast, relatively speaking, for Hearthstone people. It's not anything that I'm not even sure how many of them listen to the show or if they happen to pick this up, but Hearthstone's just not something for me anymore.
Yeah.
And I have never played less of the game until this year. And I don't know what to like. It's not even it's coming to the point where I don't have any more feedback to give the team. And I don't have anything that I want to tell Team 5 that I'm disappointed in. And I don't have anything that I want to tell Team 5 that I am in love with. It's one of those stagnant movements in a game where
You're ambivalent.
I'm out.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, it's not like the team can do anything to sucker me back into the game for a long time.
Sure.
Or even a short time. And Andres has kind of actually said the same sentiment, and that's partially why he left Coin Concede.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, about Velen's that is not related to Hearthstone that I'm leaving because is I need Sundays. I don't have Sundays. My Monday nights are gone. I have started to finally understand there is a limit to how many things you can say yes to.
Yes, very true.
I have, for so long, I have just continued to say yes to things. And what has happened, and the reason that I've not really understood this, even growing up through university and grad school and after grad school to get to this job, is that my entire life has been around a scope of, minimum of a 3-month window and maximum of a 4-year window of commitments. I've never had a commitment that's asked more of me than, a year or two to do something like that. And podcasting is a weekly commitment you got to say yes to.
Mm-hmm.
And as Grant and Eve had said on certain things that I do for the show, you have to take everything that I do for this show and basically double it, and then kind of like plus or minus a couple other things for OmniClab. And then also you have to understand the OmniClab's Discord community. We're just about to break 2,500 members in that Discord.
That's a lot.
And I'm managing a team of mods and admin. I'm also doing that gig as much as I can. I'm on the other end of the globe for most people. And the probably the most difficult part was actually something that came up like this week. Was like trying to come into the point of like acceptance that this is it.
Yeah.
And then in the same day, I had this other thought where it's like, I've been living in Japan and I really don't have any friends here. My best friend is with me, so don't get me wrong. My wife is the greatest human on the planet. So, and she's right there with the earbuds in, so you can't hear me. So I could say that. But it's not that I'm not motivated to do Velens, although there's probably things that I'm not motivated with Hearthstone, and that is tied to it, right?
Sure.
Let's be honest, Velens doesn't take as much work as OmniClab on some ways, and does in others. You have to be a little creative. As crazy as news is with Blizzard and how empty it gets for all of their franchises, Hearthstone and Warcraft are the two that get like the short end of the stick with regards to updates. They're just like, they don't say anything. And then of course, if you play Heroes of the Storm, they just like rip your esports from under you. So
just take the game away. Just like you don't get a game anymore.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm honestly surprised that I'm not more emotional, and I think it's probably because I told you guys like months and months ago we talked about this. Like,
yeah, well, that's audience. Don't think for a minute that we're all like, good. Like we're just kind of like, oh, good. We're kind of glad to see him go. It's like we've been processing this for months.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the whole thing that Eve has been experiencing was really hard on all of us, and more so than it would be normally if it would have just happened in general, because this was going on in the back end before it happened. And then all at once, Eve's life turned upside down. And I just had to say, look, I'm going to extend, for more or less of a really poor illustration, more or less is extend your warranty. So.
Well, that's
awesome. I like that one.
So, audience, don't this man like committed, like stayed on for about a month and a half longer than he wanted to. Because we had said, when do you want to leave? He said, like, I'd like to be done, officially out before Christmas. Or like, that sounds reasonable. Because that was going to give us time to like,
take a break for that time.
Learn how to run the show. Yeah.
And then it's like, well.
And then I'm like, peace out.
We didn't want the show to evaporate. And we didn't want like rumors and stuff to get started, because I think that everybody kind of generally understood that Eve was out against her wishes, and it wasn't like I just don't want to do Hearthstone, I just don't want to do podcasting anymore kind of reason.
Right.
Because a lot of podcasts go through that where people just they're done. I'm tired of it. I don't want to do this. Or, and then Rob toughed it out with me, and we did the best we could do. I think we did some okay episodes.
We did a lot of okay.
You decide. I'm not gonna tell you if they're good or not. I have no clue.
I'll let the audience decide. That's their prerogative.
Mm-hmm.
But now that Eve's back, it was like I was all excited. It was bittersweet. I'm like, this is gonna be the most bittersweet episode ever. We get Eve back, and we lose Rob. Shoot,
Yeah.
But I'm gonna make sure he guests. I'm gonna make sure that I bug him about guesting periodically.
Fine
Because
by
it'll be
me.
Yeah.
a different experience. Because all you have to do, Rob, is say, "Hey, bro, you need to see some people that speak fluent English and care about you."
Hey, sounds
we'll
good.
even get we'll even get carry on. We'll make it just the May family extravaganza.
Fun fact, I'm pretty sure Eve Grant and I had actually mentioned something on the back end to give you guys a sneak peek like months ago. They probably don't even remember it, but I was just like, I think it would be really cool if we had a 6-person podcast where we all had our spouses on just for fun.
That would
see
be
how
fun.
that went.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen now.
Yeah, not gonna happen now.
We didn't know it was gonna. We can't read the future. We don't have
Dang
our
it, Eve.
tea leaves in front of
It
us.
just
Sorry,
went
just
blanket
like-
of my idea, damn it.
If you're gonna
I'm just kidding.
cross heavy ground, go lightly. Is that how the thing goes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're gonna cross
But,
glass, get cut less.
I think that if you get some space and you get some rest and you get refreshed, then like no promises, nothing set in stone, but you might feel able to come on the show just to visit and chat and
Visiting and chatting
something-
is not something I'm gonna say no to ever. So
there you go.
I'm always here to be here, but it's just like I cannot be a permanent fixture of a week-to-week gig is the big
Nope.
thing. Yeah.
No.
We won't like reach out to you in a month. It'll give you some time and some space.
I mean, I gotta figure out what weeks are gonna look like when I'm not doing the show and I'm not having my Monday afternoons and
all this free time.
and Sundays off, because Carrie and I try to do stuff. Honestly, there's another thing that a lot of people don't really always understand, but Carrie and I are Christians, and we've been trying to find a church for like years since we've been here that actually works for us. And we've gone to like 2 or 3 different ones, and none of them are working. And even if I had my Sundays, I probably couldn't go because it's just like they're either too far. It costs us like basically $30 to $50 a week, US dollars, to give you an idea, just to go.
Woo.
And that's not
That's
counting
gotta
food.
be
That's just train fee.
Mm.
And then we're running into a lot of like interpersonal issues with leadership and people and other stuff that I'm not really quite sure how much info I can give without like doing too much. But there's
Your
also
need
the whole
levels are
thing where
vague.
there's also next year. You guys are probably not aware of this. I think Grant and Eve know, but next year in July, or this year actually, now that it's 2019, this year in July at the end of the month, I'm moving. But I'm moving into a neighboring city, and I'm going to have a gigantic job shift where I'm not teaching at 2 high schools and a 3rd high school like a couple times a year. I'm teaching at like 2 or 3 junior high schools and maybe some more elementary schools.
Holy moly.
So my workload is going to increase. My schools will completely change. Every single human that I know and work with for the last 3 years is going to be gone. Or rather still be in the same city, and I don't have them as work associates anymore. And even though I said I don't really have any friends, I have good coworkers. I have amazing coworkers, to be sure. And
We'll be here for you, Rob.
yeah, and I've got some pretty awesome co-hosts. So if you guys have some suggestions for Velens, please tell them. Grant is now in full ownership of the Discord community, as Eve is also a co-host. We had some issues where I was like trying to break the news without being weird about it. I was like, I'm kind of moving everything to Grant's plate without telling Eve because he's the one I've been talking to more.
I have been out of state, so yes.
Yeah, and then the other thing is there's a lot of like legal stuff I'm afraid if I give to Eve that they're going to run into like potential tax evasion into Canada. I don't know. So we're going to try to work on some of that.
About that.
And then I actually was thinking about this in the shower this morning. I was like, crap, I didn't do anything with the merch still. And my parents are changing addresses in the States, which is the address that is on that. And we don't get like any money for merch. It's just a labor of love. But
if you want a Velen's t-shirt, it's an opportunity to just buy it, but we don't get anything.
yeah, we don't get anything for it.
You
I know
want to
Andrew
represent
actually has like
way.
2 or 3 things from that merch store. I saw him at BlizzCon and he's wearing a Velen's Chosen hoodie, just so you guys know. And the only people that, just so you guys know, my D&D group didn't even know about this. I didn't tell them.
Yeah.
It was just
If the
my
D&D
wife,
group don't know, then
my group here, my Velen's Chosen family, and Andres. Those are the only people I told. And then I told, I got a loan with Andrew at BlizzCon and told him. But he also, we still have secrets. He told me that they were gonna have another kid before everyone. So I felt pretty special about that.
His wife is having a baby.
And
Good.
also, I have to read this. Andrew said that he was we were gonna try to get him on the show for my last show this week, and kind of a fun extravaganza / like
Reunite the old
the
crew.
whole friends. And he said, I forgot I realized I had to record before going to Florida because he was going to Florida with his wife to get away this weekend, and it was like it's a big bummer for the timing. And he says, I had elaborate plans to write you a how to leave Velen's guide since I'm the foremost expert on the subject. And I told him, I was like, hey, I'd still appreciate how to do that even if it's after the fact, because I would find much comfort in that.
Right.
Yeah, that was rough, man.
But you guys have some great creators. Velen's is not leaving. It's still in production. What will probably end up happening, though, for you guys on YouTube, this will probably be the last video you're going to be getting for a while. So I'll try to do my best to remember to put stuff in the show notes for you on YouTube and on Twitch. That if you guys are video viewership, that you're going to be kind of restricted to non-video stuff for a while, at least until Grant can lock down a couple things.
Once I can get, I posted it to YouTube this week, the last week's show. I did all the back end production. So there should be last week's show 168. This one will be posted. The thing I got to figure out is how I can run, if I can run OBS on my computer
on the
at
laptop.
home,
Yeah,
on a laptop and this and that, and see how that goes. Because honestly, I haven't tried to host with all the. I've done OBS and I've streamed once or twice off my computer, like just playing the game, but making it look nice. Because again, Rob has put a tremendous amount of time into like the overlays and stuff like that to make it look
and
good.
the way that I've set things up don't work for a single monitor anymore because I've been with two for so long. So Grant's got to figure out if he can get a second monitor plugged into his PC and it works with it and it doesn't like delay stuff and his computer doesn't blow up during middle of recording.
We will have some technical difficulties, but we will still be here.
Yeah,
we're
we'll
not
be
going
here.
anywhere.
And
So no worries.
and
And
I will
just
still be
so-
doing podcasting. Just so you guys know, I'm still on
Rob
Omnic
will be
Lab.
on Omnic Lab.
So if you like Overwatch or you miss me
I like Overwatch.
talking about serious things because I don't get to joke a whole lot on that show.
No, you have to. You get put in a box on that show. Knowing what you're like, okay, I have a specific audience I'm talking to. We got to be super serious.
And you thought I wanted to try to run a tight show for Velen's despite letting you guys do what you want. That is like Andres and I both have issues with going on rabbit trails and trying to run a tight show on the other person. Just we don't do a good job on our own. So that's why it ends up being somewhere in the middle. But
Sounds like you're a good partnership. Different, but good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, I will be available. You can ask any questions. You can submit pretty much anything to Grant and Eve if you're looking to request a guest appearance for someone else. You can submit those to the show discussion or guest questions things.
Don't request for yourself.
I actually need to say this live on the show so I don't forget, but Grant and Eve, you need to remind me of a guest that I talked to recently that didn't say they wanted to be on the show, but they're friends with Mackenzie, and I helped them with something over Christmas break, and they said they would want to come on the show if you guys had them. So
Awesome. Okay.
pretty cool
We need to
guest
get
as well.
Mackenzie back on. We need to get her back on. It's
She
been a
has
while.
been bugging us to come on, you guys, just so you know. Like every time she
She's
talks to me, she's like,
awesome.
by the way, if you guys want a guest, I really had a lot of fun. Can I come back, please? Thanks. Like
She's
pretty much
super
every
fun.
time. She's really sweet.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is couple things. Some of you guys are I'm just gonna get out in front of this because I think some people will naturally wonder this. Some of you guys are like, well, are you gonna replace Rob with a third host? Like, because we've had a three host show since its
Ever.
inception. At the moment, we have no plans to replace anybody. At the moment, Eve and I have talked about it and basically said we're gonna try the duo cast for a while, not because it's what we want to do. We're just gonna see how it works. We're going to say and evaluate and say, hey, either, hey, this might be perfect, or, we should have a third host. We don't know. So we don't have anybody in the works of somebody we want to host. Please don't recommend this might sound a little douchey, but don't recommend yourself to be the third host. Save yourself the trouble. I know that's me just being like,
Or as a guest.
or as a guest. It's not nothing personal. If you do, I'm not going to be mad at you or anything like that. But that's just not how I roll. I don't do that per se if I can help it. if somebody puts a call out, say, hey, audition for this, I'm down. I'm all about that. But right now we're not doing any cattle calls for any third host.
Yeah, and if that changes, we'll let you know.
We will let the community know. I mean, in my mind, if I had to pick a third host, I have a short list of people that I would ask. You know what I mean? Hey, would
Yeah.
you be interested?
Yeah.
But at the moment, that's not something me and Eve are gonna. And we've talked about it, so it's not like I'm surprising her with this or anything.
No, yeah, definitely.
Nothing we're gonna pursue anytime relatively soon because we want to just try it ourselves. Also, we would appreciate your feedback with the duo cast and what you like about it, what you think we could do better. I mean, I'm the kind of person that uh, I believe in improving as much as we can, as often as is possible, and what our community thinks matters. In reference to that, Jan, I know you're listening. I have been talking to arena guest Save File. He recommended to me, and Save File said he'd be on the show. Getting in touch with him is very difficult. I message him on Twitch and otherwise, and it usually takes about a week to hear back. Not bad, not good, just what it is. So we're gonna talk some arena hopefully in the next couple weeks. I asked about next weekend, so we'll see. But yes,
Yeah,
we're in the works
Valen's
for
has gone through a couple of different changes, right? Like we
yeah.
started out as a budget podcast and have changed and um, metamorphosed
Mhm,
over the years. So when it's going to be just me and Grant, I think we can be more flexible, maybe with time and different things. So
mhm,
give us your suggestions if there's something you feel is lacking in the podcast sphere, and maybe there's something we could pick up and cover that you're not finding in the different things you're listening to, something you wish was out there that has not yet been addressed. So I do like doing the lore, that's me, lore master Eve, and Grant is really good at teaching people how to play decks and going through the deck list, so that's kind of our wheelhouse right now, but we can definitely change and add to it if you guys have some good ideas.
Yeah, I
Yep.
put out some stuff where we talked internally for the last couple of months. I was like, maybe you guys want to do 2, maybe you want to do 3. It's up to you. But
mhm,
my recommendation is, there's a lot of things that are great about 3 because if you have 3, that means stuff that happens in life, like what has happened with me and moving to Japan. Eve over the last 2 years has had all kinds of nutty things. I know that Grant had some things. You have a host that needs to leave. You're not stuck with just one. Those are great because now you have something to fall back on. Or you can say, hey, look, you can just take the week off. Just take the week off. We got 2. We can do it. That's really, really great for 3 or 4 people. But when you do stuff like Andres and I do, where we are not necessarily really flexible, we're really motivated to get stuff going as a duo, and you want to schedule an interview, that means you don't have more than 3 schedules to balance. You can get guests extremely easy with 2 people being flexible and motivated to get them on. And having a third just overcomplicates it. So
it can.
It
can.
overcomplicates it in certain senses. So I'll put it that way with a little
mhm.
disclaimer on
Yeah.
it. But the other thing too about 2 people is that it feels more conversational. It doesn't feel like it's a round table more as much because you're actually having like this back and forth that's going. Or you're having like just like 2 people interviewing one is I feel like a really good format. Whereas sometimes when all 3 of us have had a fourth, someone just ends up not talking as much. It's just how the nature of it
Sure.
goes.
Yeah.
Or it tends to be just 2 people maneuvering conversation.
I
Mhm.
liked our dynamic because we all play very differently, have different opinions,
Sure.
and there was always kind of a back and forth, and it wasn't all just an echo chamber. But
Mhm.
to me and Grant running the show duo for a while, to be honest with you, the chemistry is really important.
Mhm.
You can't just throw a new person in. Like
Mhm.
Grant fitting seamlessly into Valen's shows
It was very
was
lucky for us.
amazing. And we cannot count on that happening every time.
Right.
So it would have to be something that we really thought about carefully and talked about, and to add another person into the Velen group. So
Yeah.
I think we'll be fine for
All right, folks. I almost forgot about this. I listened to all of the realm maintenance, yearly maintenance stuff, skipping around, of course, because they're like 7 episodes.
right.
And I need to, before I leave this show in particular, I need to say a big thank you to Brian Black, or Ro,
Mm.
who produces that.
Ro is a
Mhm.
superstar.
Not only is Ro a community figure that has been very generous to us for including us within anything relative to our size at any given time. Ro is a very regular listener of Velen's Chosen, more so than anything. He is one of the most consistent listeners that has kind of given us positive energy when we needed it most and not really realized it. And Ro has also not really been the typical like full engaged listener, if that makes sense, meaning that he doesn't really have time to engage in the communities because he's involved in so many.
Right.
So he is one of the purest senses of a podcast enjoyment entertainer and entertainee. He loves being entertained by this show and has chosen to put it into his repertoire. And in the last 2 years, I have seen public tweets as well as this last time where he gave his favorite podcast in the category and like limited it to like 4. And as you guys know, Overwatch, Warcraft, and Hearthstone in particular have some of the most densely populated segments for podcasting, and has included us in his list in that long of a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say to Brian that I would really appreciate everything he does. And I don't ever get enough time to talk to him at BlizzCon because we're both running around like chickens with our heads cut off. And I didn't get a chance to interview him because of that, for just a quick segment for the show. And I just wanted to thank him. I just really appreciate you listening for so long, Brian, and you've been supporting us softly and kindly for a very long time. And I also want to thank my wife for helping me make this decision, of course, to leave the show. Because if it weren't for her, I probably would be torturing myself staying here. And it's not because of Grant and Eve being problematic people, although Grant's pretty bad, let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's because I would just be working myself to death and trying to fill the void with something that I shouldn't be filling it with, more or less.
Yeah.
There
It's
you
those
go.
people that support us and help us make the hard decision.
Yeah. So, I love you guys.
Wounds of a friend are faithful.
I love you guys. If you want to follow Velen's Chosen, because it's not going anywhere, please go to the website. Stop asking for deck lists that aren't on the website, or that are actually on the website. For God's sakes, it drives me crazy, but I know it drives Grant crazy because he's the one who's actually putting the deck list in the show. So stop it. Just stop it.
Stop.
Now, for that being said, if there isn't something on the show that I said was going to be there and you call me out for it, or you call Grant and Eve out for it, that's fine. That's just happened. You're like, hey, this isn't in the show notes. And I was like, yes, it is. And I go check the website. I was like, oh, sorry, it's not there. That's happened before because I get a little overzealous with how many people tell me something's not there. But do that.
Yep.
Go to the Discord if you have follow-up questions for Grant and Eve. You want to send your love to them. It's all on the website. You can find all of us on Twitter. Probably no more self-promo. Just check it out in the show notes. It's all there.
ValensChosen.com.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you want to find us on social media, you can find us. Not hard to find. Google's your friend.
True story.
Remember,
Google's
guys, not all who
everyone's
wander are
friend.
lost, and be good to each other. See you guys. I almost hit the leave call button instead of the stop.